Live and broadcasting. Welcome to the Mike and Alicia show. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome to the virtual summit. We're so happy to have everyone on board here. We already have the participants list shooting up, so that's amazing. Those are amazing numbers for a Friday afternoon. Live and broadcasting. Much for joining us. Please open up the chat, give us a little wave, tell us where you're joining us from, and of course, what your drink of choice is. And if you're in BC, I realize it's only 10 a.m., but there's no judgment here. Welcome to the party. And yes, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A section. We will be, everyone's already. And
I just want to add one thing for the chat. Everybody, when you're doing the chat, just have a look down below. You're going to see it says all panelists. Please change that to all panelists and attendees, because otherwise only we can see what you're saying and nobody else can. So in the chat, you should see all panelists and attendees, and I'll try to remind you guys to make that change. Anybody who's already said hi, keep that in mind, because that way everybody can see what you're talking about.
Yep, and please keep the chat coming. We really want this to feel as much of an immersive experience as possible, and like we're all together in one room, which I dream about every night. So, so please keep the welcomes coming, and thank you so much for spending time with us. We are on a really tight schedule today. We have a lot of amazing speakers to come up, and so we have a great action-packed agenda for you. Also wanted to give a really quick shout out to our gold sponsors, TD Canada and Sagen, formerly Genworth Canada. They really are the magicians behind making these events happen. So thank you so much for their support. And with that said, Mike, is there anything else before I introduce our first speaker?
No, I'm glad to see most people get it. All panelists and attendees in the chat. Again, you can use the Q&A. You'll find it near the bottom. If you're on mobile Zoom, you'll see it near the top, and it should be Q&A. And I'll ask that if you have questions, throw them up in there. And again, we're good to go. It looks like most people get all panelists and attendees.
Perfect. Amazing. So I am thrilled to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is, the president and CEO of Royal LePage and Bridgemark Real Estate Services, with 20,000 agents in Royal LePage Commercial, Via Capital, and Proprio Direct. We are, in fact, the largest real estate brokerage firm in Canada. Phil Soper was named the most influential leader in Canadian real estate. And with that said, it is my utmost pleasure to introduce to you the one, the only Phil Soper.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you. And, welcome to the fourth quarter. We're almost in the fourth quarter, a few days of the National Sales Conference Alternative. Man, oh man, has it been a strange year. But you guys have done so well. I want to say thank you to our team, who have been really instrumental in pulling off this miraculous year. I want to say thank you to you for being out there, for working so hard in this unprecedented challenge in the spring and bounce back in the summer. We've never seen a year like this one, believe me. And honestly, I hope we never do. But you've been amazing out there. And, a big virtual hand to the Canadian housing consumer, who has, stepped back and said, what's the most important thing for me? The most important thing for me is to have a safe, healthy, enjoyable place for me and my family to live and work. And more people are working there. And that's part of our theme today. Let me get underway. I've got, for the next 50 minutes, I've got some stuff to share with you. And my first little Boible, there we go. Just getting used to the new system here. One of the things I wanted to ensure you realize right out the back, this is not a situation where we managed to survive in the onslaught of a huge pandemic. We have thrived. And what I'm going to go through today is essentially information that I hope you'll find useful when you're talking to your clients, when you're talking to your teams, if you're a manager, if you're talking at an office meeting, if you're talking to others in the industry, because they should understand this stuff. A lot of it is really confusing to people. They They say, how could real estate prices be rising when things are so tough? Well, they're not tough everywhere. And I'm going to get into that. I'm going to give you the background on why LePage, way back in the spring at the beginning of the pandemic, was the only forecaster to get this right, to essentially say, this is what we see for Canadian real estate in 2020. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into what we see on a go-forward basis. And then we're going to get into the company itself. We're going to talk about what we've been doing, what we plan to do, and how we intend to stay on top as number one. Okay? All right, let's get this show rolling. You might have heard discussions about this recession described in letter terms. A U-shaped recovery would be one in which the economy falls, skates along the bottom, and then rise. These are what we typically hope for in a recession. They drop and then they bounce back. W's are repeated drops. They're dreaded. L's, you go down and stay down. Luckily, that is not the situation in Canada. So what are we dealing with? It really is looking like a K-shaped recession. So what is that? It really means that it's unequal. And this is a sad thing, because if you dive into the details, you realize that there are people that are very negatively impacted on the bottom of this recovery. The hardest hit people, those part-time workers, those people in food and beverage, in the travel industry, in events. It's just a really, really tough time for them. And they have not seen a strong recovery, a little recovery, but not a strong one. On the negative impact over on the side, there are those particularly small businesses that came into this already on shaky ground, over leveraged, marginal companies, and we're seeing some of those drop by the wayside. But there are businesses and sectors that have been more resilient. This top section of the chart of the K-shaped recovery is really the story of Canadian real estate. On the more resilient side, we have our clients. We have the Canadian real estate consumer. These are people with solid jobs. They haven't lost their jobs, and they haven't had pay cuts. They're probably getting cost of living increases. They tend to be homeowners. There's a huge correlation between the people on that rise, on that more resilient rise, and home ownership. And there are businesses and companies and sectors that re-engineered themselves to effectively work away from a cluster, from getting together in an office. And of course, there are those that thrived. We know these businesses, the Amazon hiring 100,000 people, opening up mega warehouses across Canada. They are a true success story. Streamers, Netflix, Prime, Apple's streaming service have all done extremely well. And of course, real estate. Real estate has benefited from the pandemic. It would have been hard to predict from the beginning, but we are one of the sectors that has actually seen a lift because of this global health crisis. Let's get into that in a little more detail. First thing you notice is the overall economy is coming back. You see that precipitous drop. It's not, and it's in a chart like this, you realize just how CMHC could have been so wrong with their forecast, which by the way came out about the same time ours. You know, we predicted a drop during the lockdown and then a strong recovery and home prices to end the year up. CMHC, their forecast suggested that a grave dark cloud would sweep over the country and home prices would fall by almost 20%. 18% said the outgoing CEO, Evan Siddall. What they did is they plugged a model like this into their formula. And they said, look at that drop in unemployment. But what do we know about that drop of unemployment in the spring? It was voluntary. It was companies and people saying, we're going to shelter at home to keep each other safe. It wasn't a natural economic occurrence. It wasn't a cyclical occurrence. It wasn't driven by a weakness in the banking or international trade or anything. It was a voluntary group effort by our country to get together to keep each other safe. And so, of course, it was going to bounce back. Now, the challenge has been, of course, that not everybody is on that bounce back curve. But as we have found out, real estate owners, homeowners, and people who qualify to get a mortgage, qualify to buy a home, happen to be in that steep upward curve. Here's GDP. What's GDP? It's revenue. It's like production. So Canada's GDP is up 15% from the April low. If you step back and you look at, say, the Bank of Canada's forecast, they expect we're going to lose something like 7 to 8% of GDP this year. Now, that number hasn't been revised, and it won't be quite that bad, in part because of the strength of the real estate economy, and real estate being the #1 industrial segment in Canada, the biggest part of the Canadian economy, and it has been stronger than the bank anticipated. But it'll still be down. Call it 6 to 7% down. In 2021, they expect the economy to grow about 5%, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but 5%, which is a dramatically strong year if we hadn't come off a dramatically weak year in the pandemic. So what does that really mean? Well, if you're good at math, you know that 7 or 6 minus 5 still leaves a gap. We're not going to fully recover as an economy, as a nation, as a world, probably until 2022. But the real estate economy obviously recovered in 2020, let alone 2021. Part of this is due to interest rates. We're at historic lows now. You can get a 5-year fix for 1.6%. Some of you have heard me tell the story. I had lunch with Gordon Gray, a previous CEO of LePage that some of you have been around a long time will remember. He was the CEO in the late 70s and early 80s. He gathered as we have for over a century, the LePage faithful together in a September sales conference, big national conference. And he said, in 1981, September 1981, if we can just get mortgage rates down to 17 or 18%, we can get this market going again. In September of 1981, they peaked at 21.4%. Compare that to 1.6%. This is incredible stimulus for our economy, incredible stimulus for the housing industry. And you see that in the numbers. These are September year-over-year numbers. And remember, September last year was a pretty good month. In the previous year and a half, we've been recovering from the impact of the federal mortgage stress test, Bill B-20. But by the September timeframe, most parts of the country were climbing out of those doldrums and they were growing nicely. Yet look at these numbers. We're up 50% in Vancouver, 58%, 32% in Calgary, 42% in Toronto. If we get over here to Ottawa, we're looking at 51% and 41% in Montreal. These are huge year-over-year growth numbers. Part of it is the pent-up demand from the pandemic. Part of it is the pent-up demand from the mortgage stress test. Really, we had a year and a half of much lower than normal transactions. And part of it is normal organic growth in the fastest growing advanced economy, employment-wise and population-wise in the world. So even if none of this had happened, B20, the pandemic, Canada's real estate market would have been expanding because our population is expanding. And we still are creating a huge number of new households as millennials leave their parents' homes. and set up houses for themselves. So they go from one property to two, and often three, as the parents divide their family home into a smaller principal residence and a recreational property, for example. So there's a tremendous amount of upward pressure just naturally on Canadian real estate, which is why we've talked about the challenges associated with supply shortages for so long. If you look at balance in our economy, in our real estate market, you can see that over the time period in previous years, we've had times where things have been, I have to do everything backwards. I really feel for the weather people who have to point around at clouds and things. It's a little challenging, but I'm getting the hang of it. So we did have that period right before 2017 where the market was a strong seller's market. And then we went into an extended period of time where you see balance happened. This was partly due to B20, partly due to just overshooting and price increases. But then coming out of that, you saw a huge leap in interest. You look at that curve coming into 2020. This is a pent-up demand from the mortgage stress test, and this is organic demand in Canada, and the inventory just can't keep pace. It's falling rapidly. Then the pandemic hits. Well, you can see what happened there. That huge spike in inventory as sales plummeted. They were down by up to 2/3 in certain weeks of the spring during the lockdown in certain parts of the country. And then that huge leap back. But what didn't leap back? Inventory. So inventory remains one of the tightest situations we've had in Canadian history. Policymakers are now figuring this out, and they know that they need to focus more than ever on creating enough homes for Canada's new households, be they kids leaving their family, be they new Canadians, be they retiring baby boomers who are going from one property to two. They know we need more housing to accommodate our population and our economy, and I believe they will rise to the challenge. I talked at the beginning about the fact that the pandemic was in fact a stimulus, a catalyst, a COVID catalyst for our industry. So let's examine that a little bit more. If you look at this chart, you can see over the long run, Canadians' savings rates, that's what this chart looks at, have been in that 2 to 3% range. So if you look at the overall economy, overall revenue, we save 2 to 3%. And we happily go spend the rest on houses and vacations and restaurants and cars, you name it. But look what happened during the pandemic. Oh my God, huge spike. In fact, this leap in savings in Canada, you have to go back to 1961 to find a savings rate this high, 28.2%. People just weren't spending. They weren't traveling. They weren't going out, events. They couldn't go to hockey games, baseball games. They were saving money. But guess what? They found something to spend it on. If you look at this, and this is the result of LePage research, you show what are you going to cut back on? What do you think you're going to cut back on? Well, way over on the left, things like eating out in a restaurant, travel, clothing. We just don't need this kind of clothing when we're doing Zoom calls all the time. So these are industries that have had a real challenge because people are saving that money. They're not spending it. But look at way down at the very bottom, you have housing. They're spending the money on housing. There've been literally billions of dollars tucked away, and now they're reallocating it into real estate. They're realizing that their principal residence isn't appropriate for, say, two professionals who are both working from home. Add to that, say, someone who's got kids who are attending school from home, and you've got 3 Zoom calls all going on at the same time. You may need a different configuration in your home. People are also saying, I can't travel, so I need a recreational property. John O'Rourke, who manages our business in the Muskokas, told me the other day that we reached the record, and we're a dominant force in cottage country, in most areas of the country, but certainly in Ontario. We reached our 2017 record at the end of August. Tremendous interest in having real property, a place where people can gather safely, where you can work safely, and particularly if you're going to be working from home. So what has this done, this shift of money from savings into real estate done? Well, it's putting upward pressure on prices. And look at these prices, these year-over-year prices in the third quarter from the LePage House Price Survey. And a shout out, by the way, to our data people, our PR people, the people that do our research. LePage is the only real estate company in the country that does base original research. If you see another real estate company quoted, all they're doing is taking something from the board, or often from us, and they're yapping on it after it's already out in the marketplace. We do original research, and we take that research and we offer advice and counsel to Canadian consumers, Canadian businesses, like say banks and insurance companies, and to you. So you have a leg up, you have more insight, and you have the credibility of the voice of Canadian real estate, a company that actually understands what goes into these numbers because they calculated them themselves. And you can see right across the board, even a hard hit area like Calgary, there we go, prices are up a little bit. Remember, if you saw the chart earlier, volumes are way up, like 40% in September versus last year, but prices are up. And just this week, we got some good news on the energy price market. The horrible glut on the worldwide energy market appears to be balancing. Oil prices are up, the Canadian dollar is up, and I believe 2021 will be a much kinder year to Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Newfoundland, who rely so heavily on our energy sector. And just so you can see it, the whole chart, lots of positive sentiment for homeowners across the country as the value of their housing stock rises. If you look at our forecast, our outlook, and I talked about this right at the very beginning, we saw way back in March, a couple of things were going to happen. One, we knew interest rates would be taken to rock bottom. Whenever there's a crisis, the Bank of Canada, policymakers respond by taking the cost of money down. And people don't buy houses based on their sticker price. They buy them based on the carrying costs, those monthly payments. And the dramatic drop in the cost of money and mortgage financing made homes much more affordable, which encouraged people back in the marketplace. We knew from our research and our archives and the Great Recession, the financial crisis of 12 years ago, that first-time home buyers would leap back in the market. So our forecast predicted a dip in the lockdown and a recovery, and that's exactly what you're seeing. You're seeing these numbers right across the board. As I mentioned, flat home prices in our energy sector, but they're hanging on. People's home values are hanging on, and as the economy recovers more fully, we hope that they will join the rest of the country in moving forward and essentially allowing the housing industry to help the Canadian economy overall recover. So what about in condos? I get asked this a lot by the media. You know, they say, we've got, yeah, I understand you've got the bounce in detached homes because people don't want to live in a condo anymore. But what about condos? Well, if you look at the third quarter LePage survey in Canadian home prices and the LePage house price composite, you'll see that overall nationally in the third quarter, detached home prices were up about 10%, and overall condos were up about 5%. So how can that be? Because we've got Airbnb shut down, and a lot of investors in condos used Airbnb as their source of income. We have students from working from home. They're not in the classroom, so they're not renting apartments. And a big one, foreign students who were a surprisingly huge influence on the Canadian housing market. Well, let's look at what's going on here. The first one is foreign students. Did you know, because I didn't, I knew it was important because I sit on the board of one of Canada's big universities, that foreign students were really critical to our institutions. They pay much, much higher fees, happily, by the way, to get access to our incredibly high quality universities and colleges. And they help keep tuition fees down. They help us hire professors and do research. So foreign students are really critical. But look at just how critical. Last year, 830,000, almost 1 million people from around the world studied in Canada at our post-secondary educations. They contributed $21 billion to the economy. That's bigger than our exports in auto parts, lumber, or aircrafts. It's huge. And what are they really, a big portion of that is real estate. And of course, we pull that out of the marketplace, it puts investors in a real tough spot. Well, first of all, the good news is the government is returning to allowing foreign students back into the country. There are stipulations, isolation requirements when they first arrive, et cetera, et cetera. But they are back, and it makes sense. They're really no different than a domestic student if they follow rules to keep everybody safe. So this economy is roaring back. But before I get to that, before I get to the return of Airbnb style short-term, the investor condo market overall, why didn't prices fall precipitously during this time period? First-time home buyers. They have been standing in the wings, waiting for an opportunity to get in the market. What the team tells me, those on the street that I talk to, is young people want to get into the real estate market. They're not worried about elevator rides. They know this will be over. They know they can keep themselves safe. Really simple things. Wear a mask in the elevator. They're not worried about it. What they're worried about is the escalating price of real estate and never, ever being a homeowner. So this provides a huge opportunity for them. They can get, if they've got jobs, they can get into the marketplace, and the typical inflation on condos isn't there. There are deals to be had, particularly, remember what I said, people don't buy properties based on their sticker price. They buy them based on carrying costs, particularly with today's low interest rates. So for every investor that has had to sell their property because they don't have an Airbnb business anymore, there's been 2 or 3 first-time home buyers lined up outside the door saying, thank God I finally have an opportunity. So that's what's kept the condominium market. It hasn't been as strong as detached, but it's been strong. And with the return of foreign students, our own students, short-term rentals, we're going to, again, have a shortage of condominiums in Canada. Hard to believe, isn't it? Immigration, we have long been a researcher and call it a standard bearer of making sure that Canadian policymakers understand the importance of immigration to Canada's largest economic sector. If you haven't looked at it yet, please go into Royal LePage, the media room, the research section, just Google it if you don't know where it is, and read our research into the importance of newcomers to the Canadian housing market. And it's not just in our great big cities like Vancouver and Toronto and Montreal. In places like Saskatchewan, newcomers, what we define as a newcomer is an immigrant who's been here 7 years or less, I believe, was the benchmark in the real estate. They can account for up to 45% of the transactions in a year in Saskatchewan. Why? Because the number of transactions in recent years have been lower. The economic activity has been relatively flat, and yet newcomers continue to come to the country, and they make a huge impact economically, positive impact on the housing market. And the government confirmed just a few weeks ago that immigration will be allowed to return, because we know that we don't have enough babies to keep the population easing up. We don't grow by a lot, 1.5%, but it needs to keep growing for us to continue to progress as a society. Just like your practice needs to grow, you need your productivity to grow over a year. If you're a manager running a real estate brokerage, you know your brokerage has to grow year after year, because treading water is a fallacy, right? You're either sinking or you're floating, you're swimming to the surface. And the economy is no different. We need to continue to grow. And this is, call it 1/5 of the solution. 4/5 is organic, Canadians having babies, raising families, and we add another 1/5 through immigration. So it's a very critical part of our economic future. Canadian mortgage defaults. Let's talk about that for a second. A lot of people, and I'll get to it in a second, are really worried about the end of the deferment on mortgages. By the way, I have to say, I was very proud again of the Canadian financial institutions who very early and we're talking about February 2020, were asking for meetings with the federal policymakers to discuss the impending hit to the economy. And collectively, the financial sector and our federal policymakers came to the conclusion that one thing we needed to avoid was mortgage defaults. If people could hang on to their homes, the entire economy would be in so much better shape. What's the proof point? The collapse of the American financial system in 2008, which brought down the real estate sector, where so many people lost their homes in the 6 years it took the American housing economy to recover. They wanted to avoid that. So they put in place these programs, formal programs. And what happened? Well, a lot of people applied, but less than they anticipated. They also knew, after looking at the numbers, some halfway through the program, that a lot of people who applied were doing it out of an abundance of caution. They didn't necessarily need a deferment, but they were worried about their job. They were worried about their future. And most of them had no reason to, because the furloughed employees, the ones that got laid off, most of those had happened bang, right off the bat in March and April. And since then, there's been an improvement. I showed you that earlier, the rising employment rate in the country. But mortgage default rates still remain low. If you look at the blue line is the US, the red line is Canada, and you'll see we're still at less than 1/3 of 1% of mortgages. And even at its best before the pandemic, the United States was 11 or 12 times worse than Canada. If you look at the delinquency rate right during the pandemic, you see it barely budged from 0.26 to 0.29 of 1%, less than 1/3 of 1%. If you look at the people who are getting new mortgages, 87.5% are people with the highest credit scores in this country. So, you'll hear these fear mongers talking about, the crash of the housing economy because these people won't be able to afford their mortgages. Number one, the stress test has not disappeared. They have to qualify for a mortgage on a much higher interest rate than actually exists in the marketplace at retail. And secondly, they're our most creditworthy people in the entire country. I'm not worried about Canada's housing stock. So this is the final chart I'll show you on this, but it's an important one. It's a Bank of Canada chart that says, well done. it looks at what the government did, and it says, and the financial institutions, and it says, you know, if you hadn't done this, if you hadn't made these changes, the delinquency rate would look like that blue line. But with the changes, we're in good stead. And by the way, it isn't as bad as even they forecast. But what it really says is policy enacted quickly in a crisis can stave off crisis. And that's exactly what's happened in Canada in 2020. All right, let's talk a little bit about the future. This research looks at industries and their capability to work at home. And you can see we're pretty well right in the middle of this chart. A lot of people in our industry spun right on a dime. Yes, you still have to meet with clients to show them a property or to see their property in order to assess its value and list it. But after that, almost all of the meetings you would have had with your clients are now done virtually. Our company collectively across the land pivoted and went digital, working remote, went virtual on a dime, and we haven't missed a beat. Well, maybe we missed a few beats, but we caught them really quickly. And I couldn't be prouder of the firm, of you out in the field, of our administrators from coast to coast, of my team in LePage Galactic headquarters, who figured out not just how to survive, but how to thrive in an unprecedentedly short period of time. One last little thing on that I thought you'd get a kick out of. You may know, who doesn't know, that November 3rd, there's an American election. One thing LePage has done for many, many years is we track interest in America of Canada, and particularly Canadian real estate, as it relates to an election. Well, it turns out the sorry state of affairs with our closest cousins and neighbors has resulted in an incredible surge in interest in Canadian real estate. And Canada's favorite and most visited real estate company website is seeing a huge leap in volume. You can see it there. That's a year over year. And they can't even come here. The border's closed. The number of cross-border transactions are way, way down. It's kind of hilarious, but there's always hope. Anyways, and we can hope for more calm and civility in America in 2021 and beyond. We are in the fall. We knew from the very beginning, even though, and I'm guilty of this too, we like to pretend maybe it wouldn't happen. But we knew that in the fall, when people retreated indoors, that virus-driven diseases like the normal flu, they spike. We call it the flu season for a reason. There's a reason people get flu shots in September and October. Well, and we knew that the coronavirus would act the same way, and we are getting a return of spikes. Now, what's changed? The efficacy of our treatment, the ability to do it right, is dramatically better. We're much farther along. As a matter of fact, those who are hospitalized, we've cut the fatality rate, which has always been a small number of those hospitalized, but we've cut that fatality rate by 50%. It's really quite dramatic. And of course, we're doing a better job of protecting our elderly. We honestly, if we could turn back time, it's one thing, if I could wave a magic wand and turn back time, it would be to somehow protect our oldest and most vulnerable. And now at least we've got a handle on that. So the disease has spun low to younger people who can still get very, very sick, but they do it in a more manageable fashion, that the real severe cases that could result in a fatality are much smaller. WorkSafe for LePage was launched in the heart of the pandemic, and it was extremely well received. People like Frank Biner in Windsor, he reached out to me and he said, no other real estate company is doing anything like this. Can I share the stuff that we're doing as a company with my colleagues, my competitors, but my colleague? Because this was in the dark days of the spring? And I said, absolutely. And that happened right across the country. WorkSafe roll LePage and all the information that we provided through the challenging times really helped the whole industry get through. And I will say a big shout out to organized real estate, to the provincial associations, to the Canadian Real Estate Association for doing their part in keeping everyone safe. But specifically on the company, it is that time that you go back and look at, and we've re-energized our communication program events, the WorkSafe roll LePage guidelines, webinars, digital assets. It's all designed to be shared between you and your clients. Ways, classy, professional ways in which we can operate safely to give our consumer clients the comfort that they're working in the right way. The roll LePage personal protective equipment store is up and running, and you can purchase all manner of PPE to give to your clients and make them safe and happy. And we're pushing our messages on how roll LePage has transformed into a digital firm that's able to provide great real estate insight, professional real estate services in a predominantly digital fashion. Through you, we're pushing it out through advertising and social media channels. So this message on WorkSafe roll LePage is getting out there to your consumer clients, and they are responding by saying, okay, this is a company that cares. This is a company that focuses on it. This is a kind of representative I want to work with if I'm actually going to engage in the fall in real estate transactions when infections are spiking again. And talking about pushing messaging out, it has been an incredible year for messaging. Not just because the real estate industry took a big hit, but because it made a huge leap back, because of all the things we did in terms of keeping people safe. And weirdly, because of our internal systems, huge amount of interest in RLP sphere in the media, and not just the real estate media, but the general business and technology media as well. So year over year, we are at 5.6 billion consumer impressions. That's a 65% leap year over year. And remember, we are number one and have been for time immemorial in terms of taking messages to the marketplace through what we call earned media. You can buy a bus shelter, and bless you if you're doing so. But really what really hits home is when they see something, in the Calgary Herald, the Vancouver Sun, the Star, the Province, CBC, CTV, online through one of the many blogs or digital media outlets that comes from us with data, with insight, with credibility. And by the way, thank you, all of you who are spokespeople. I know it takes time away from your clients, from your families. I know you have to study and understand the messaging we're giving you, but with a big part of the power of the roll LePage media program is the fact that it's nationwide. It's not just me talking to a national outlet. It's communities across the country where we have experts trained in PR who are taking the roll LePage insight into the Canadian real estate economy to their local media outlets with a local spin. Very critical, and thank you for that time. RollLePage.ca, Canada's #1 real estate company website. Realtor.ca still gets more visits, but it's our industry website. We're very proud of it. But as a company website, we're #1. We were the first website, even ahead of Realtor.ca, way back in 1995. Hard to believe. And well, we're #1, and we worked very, very hard on that. Great job to our team in strategic business services and IT to make this happen. 5 million unique visitors a month. Canada doesn't have that many millions of people. This has been huge, 63% year over year, but it gets even more impressive. Look at that. 236,000 leads. And 1/3 of those are what we call hot leads. These are people who want to book a showing. And we've just really begun to harvest the integration of our new end-to-end digital platform. You ain't seen nothing yet, but this is huge. This is huge. If you look at the kinds of things we're going to continue to do to stay ahead, we're adding functionality on listings and integration into RLP Sphere. The virtual open house feature is being expanded and developed, and our contact agent and office technology is being enhanced. So let's talk about RLP Sphere, the most powerful technology platform in Canadian real estate. In fact, it is Canada's first and only full digital brokerage platform, end to end. All the inputs from the industry, from outside, from the national firm, to the brokerage, to the frontline team and practitioner. Everything integrated, everything digital. The adoption rate of this kind of technology, because we did study case studies in the US, has been much faster by you than anything we've seen in the United States. And of course, we haven't seen anything in Canada because no one's taken the time. Training, fabulous attendance. Thank you. Because you can build the world's best gadget, best computer, best mousetrap. But if the user doesn't know how to use it, it just sits there. It's just wasted code. It's wasted artificial intelligence and cloud-based server technology, which is what RLP Sphere is. And the digital, the reach, the complexity, and the ease of use of RLP Sphere is actually grabbing international headlines, be it Inman, Riz Media, and domestically RAM, Business Insider, and many more. So we are so proud of what our team's been able to do. 18 months in the progress building this darn thing. But we're even more proud of the way you've adopted it, right from that entry-level realtor who's just getting started to some of the biggest teams in the entire country who have leapt on board and are using this technology to drive their business forward. We're teammates in this, we're partners in this, and we want to continue to be teammates and partners and leverage every opportunity we have to move your business forward. I love this. We've already, remember, this thing's only been out literally for weeks, that it's really been out of pilot and into production. 1 million emails has been sent by the RLP Sphere engine. And you know, a lot of that is autopilot. A lot of that are letting the system do what it does best, which is make you look like a superstar. 1 million emails. 32,000 leads driven by RLP Sphere in the first weeks of this platform. It's really quite amazing. Thank you for jumping on board. It would be useless without your enthusiasm. But we don't stop there. I mean, this thing, we've got 1.0 in the field. Actually, it's probably 1.1 because there's already been some enhancements that have put in, but we've got lots of plans for this. You know, we want to take search to advanced polygraphic search. Using user-driven maps and push that down to your websites. Integration across platforms, integration. And remember, RLP Sphere, if you happen to be new in the company and you haven't seen how this works, RLP Sphere provides a free website to every LePage realtor that's tied into this infrastructure, every LePage office. And it's all integrated, and it drives the power of Canada's largest website through to you in the form of leads. Bon video, new team enhancements, carriage trade and commercial, listing management enhancements, performance enhancements. When you roll out a new technology, you want to get the functionality out there and you want to make sure it doesn't break. So a big part of what you do is you get it into market, you get people using it, you make sure it's bulletproof, and then you start to make it run faster. You work on, you work on performance enhancement. So that's what's coming. Core print, because print still has a role to play in this digital world, and the introduction of the management of sold data to help drive interest in your websites, in your office website, and the company website. Coming in the Q4, integration with Next One, transaction decks, enhancements to our campaigns functionality, and more advanced agent and company search, as I mentioned earlier. No presentation from Phil would be complete without me thanking you and urging you to support our foundation. As you know, I mean, you've seen this as well as I've seen this in the news, with people spending much more time at home. Those who are in an abusive relationship, those women and children in abusive relationships, are more at risk than ever. And we need to do something about it. A huge part of our fundraising was, of course, event-driven. We were supposed to have an event in September that would bring, a couple of thousand LePagers together to celebrate, and they are so generous. Well, you have spun, I'm so proud of you. Commission donations, which essentially a few dollars on every deal, are significantly up this year. That just warms my heart. Basically, what you're saying is, I know I can't bid on an auction item at a conference. I know I can't engage in, some kind of activity I would have, like a golf tournament or a bicycle race. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give money to these women and children that really need it through the foundation. So thank you. But we're still going to be down, not nearly as much as I would have thought at the beginning of the year, but we're still going to be down. So we do need your help. The Shelter Foundation team is launching a Secret Santa program in the fourth quarter, ahead of the holidays, ahead of Christmas, ahead of the gift giving season, that we'd love to have you participate in. So watch the communications, watch Facebook, watch RLP Nation, watch your emails for details on how you can help, how you can contribute. It'll be fun, like all shelter activities, and it'll be great. And we are working. We're not standing still. I would love to get the Shelter Challenge up and running. We won't do it the same way during the COVID era, but we'll think of something. And next year we're due to do something. So for all of you who are alumni from Machu Picchu or Iceland or the Sahara Desert Trek, watch your news, give us your feedback, because we're going to find a way to use the extraordinary sacrifice of our members to open the wallets of their community, their families, and you, the LePagers across the country, to support our foundation. We will find a way. We are in the first quarter going to continue to have awards galas, but they will have to be virtual. We realize that now. We're literally weeks away from starting the awards gala. They'll be fun. We've got great ideas how to make it fun, and we want to celebrate you, because some of you, a lot of you, had your best year ever. Who would have thought? So we want to celebrate you. We're going to celebrate you again when we get back together, but we want to make sure we do it during these times where we can't gather in large numbers. I think back the very last big event that we had, we got them all done, coast to coast, big galas. The very last one was in Toronto, where there was a couple of thousand people, and it was like March 13th or 14th. It was maybe 48 hours before the lockdown order came. And I was just, my fingers were crossed, because the very next day, I think it was a Thursday night, I flew to Thunder Bay, and we had a great day there. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm a plague dog from Toronto, and I'm going to like Thunder Bay, for those of you across the country, is 8 hours away from Toronto. It's a long way from Toronto. It's a great big honking province, Ontario. I thought I was going to bring the plague to Thunder Bay, and luckily nothing came out of any of our galas, and nothing came out of my last trip to Thunder Bay. So you guys were actually the last, but it seems like a million years ago. We're not going to be able to do it again in person this year, but we will get together. So watch those dates. You'll get lots of warning as well. And finally, we are still planning to get together in person a year from now. It's a year from now, 12 months from now. You might think, oh, that's crazy. 12 months from now, this whole thing, everything we've been through, it's only 6 months. It's 3 times the amount of time that we've been through COVID. Might it not be possible? Yeah, we'll decide that way closer to the date. But right now, I remain optimistic that Canada will figure out a way for us to get back together again. So fingers crossed, think about the fall in Winnipeg. With that, my friends, I want to say thank you very much for your time, for tuning in today. It's a weird way to stay in touch, but it's also way better than not staying in touch at all. So stay safe, stay busy. The very best to you and your family in the coming weeks, and I look forward to the next time we have to talk. With that, I think I'm turning things back to
me. Yes. Thank you, Phil. Thank you so much for those valuable insights. That was an amazing presentation, and I'm sure our agents really appreciated it. Thank you also to all the agents that are commenting in the chat. It's really great to feel like you're not talking to a brick wall and to see all the activity that's coming in on the side of the page. So please keep that up, but just remember to select all panelists and attendees, just so that everyone can see your comments. We also had some really great questions that came in during Phil's segment. Unfortunately, we won't have time to answer those today, but what we will do is we'll consolidate those questions and we'll put some commentary into the RLP Nation Facebook group for you next week. So keep an eye out for that. Now, we are running a tight ship here today, so we will jump right into our next speaker. And our next speaker is none other than Kiki Sorial-Rude, VP of Business Development at Sagen, formerly Genworth Canada. In her role, Kiki is responsible for managing key national lender relationships while also supporting real estate and building communities. She provides insights and strategies to help grow the business, reduce costs, and originate high-quality loans beyond the mortgage insurance transaction. With over 17 years experience with Genworth Canada, now Sagen, Kiki is actively involved in charitable giving. She represents the business with Habitat for Humanity GTA and is also chair of our very own Royal LePage Shelter Foundation, where she has served on the board for the past 5 years. So with that said, it is my absolute honor to introduce to you Kiki Sorial-Rude. Can we hear Kiki? No, we can't hear you, Kiki.
Kiki, can you click at the bottom left where the microphone is? Have a look and see there. If you can change your microphone settings and try to talk again. Now you're muted. There should be a little arrow beside the microphone. Click on that. Give that a shot and have a look at what your microphone settings are set to.
Okay, so while we're waiting for Kiki to get set up with her sound, I'm just going to implore everyone, because it is a Friday and because we are, getting ready for the weekend. If anyone has any exciting weekend plans or anything that they're looking forward to doing this weekend, please put that into the chat. I know in Ontario here, we're currently experiencing 23 degrees, so it feels kind of a lot like summer, which has certainly got me excited. I see someone's raking leaves. There's certainly a lot of leaves to go around, so lots to rake. But yes, getting very excited for the weekend. I also, when Kiki told me about this presentation that she was doing and the renaming of Genworth, which she will speak to if we can get the tech issues sorted out, Sagen, that's going to be easy to remember. I'm a huge fan of the gin. And I'm sure in a few hours, I will be enjoying one myself.
Well, Kiki, if it's really not coming up, click the little arrow at the bottom and maybe you can do switch to phone audio. It'll give you the numbers to call in and then maybe you can just call in. So if you see that by the little arrow beside the audio, and then maybe that, because I want to get you up and running because Kiki does have other meetings to get to today in about 1 minute. Now I wanted to make sure, I told her from the presentation side, I said, I want to make sure you have as much time to talk as possible. But the mic side is the other side. You can't, well, you can talk, but we can't hear you. No, still not hearing you. Still not gotcha. Click the arrow. You should see an option to switch to phone audio and just call it in if you got your phone. Can't hear you. I see you're saying, can you hear me now? But I can't hear you say it. And I will remind people, as you see Christine mentioning here, is just a reminder we've gotten some great comments that go to all panelists. So do me a favor, when you're going to put in the chat, just say all panelists and attendees. And then you should be able to get that going. Still not much happening here, Kiki. Doesn't look like you're able to switch to your phone.
So Mike and Kiki, do you think maybe it makes sense if we jump into the panel presentation and then we circle back with Kiki and see if we can record Kiki speaking to the presentation and post that in RLP Nation? Kiki, does that work for you?
I'm not sure, Kiki, do you still have a little bit of flex time or no? Yeah, you do? Okay.
She does have a bit of flex time. Okay.
I'll take it in the chat. You take it.
Sorry about that, Kiki, and thank you. We'll figure something out. So ladies and gentlemen, with that said, I would like to introduce our next segment. So our next segment will be a panel, and it will be based on turning challenge into opportunity. Now, the moderator for said panel is familiar to most of you, but I will give her a little bit of an introduction. In fact, I did a lot of online creeping and got some really interesting facts. So very excited for this. So Carolyn Cheng is the COO and CTO of Royal LePage. Last year, she made the Swanepoel Power 200 list, which ranks the most powerful leaders in the residential real estate brokerage industry. And that's based on as of December 31st. So that actually came out earlier this year. As Chief Technology Officer and Chief Operating Officer, she oversees the development of new services for Royal LePage. She also leads a consolidated broker and agent services team and remains a key player in the development and execution of services designed to assist brokers and agents. She is also a self-taught, award-winning abstract aerial photographer, and her work is absolutely amazing. Her talent knows no bounds, and you can check it out for yourself at carolyncheng.com. So with that said, it is my pleasure to introduce to you moderator of this next segment, Carolyn Cheng.
Alicia, that was quite a bit of research that you did. Thank you so much for that introduction.
I'm a bit of a creeper, I'm sorry.
All right. Well, so we're really excited to have our esteemed panel of agents with us today who have all been able to navigate this really challenging time during the pandemic, and each has grown their businesses by between 25 to 31% in GCI at the same time year over year between 2019 and 2020, which is incredibly impressive. We're going to learn a little bit more about how each of them has done this, as they've each had a slightly different strategy. So our panel of agents today includes, Mike, can I get you to flip the screens? Okay, Rachel Hammer of Royal LePage Team Realty Hammer and Associates from Ottawa, Karen Kenyon from Royal LePage Parksville Qualicum Beach Realty in Parksville, and Carlo DeCastris from Royal LePage Royal City in Guelph. Because we're virtual, I'm going to interview each of our panelists one at a time. And if we have time, we'll take questions for all of the agents at the end. So please put questions you have in the Q&A. And if we don't have time to get to all of the questions, just like with Phil, we'll send out all of the Q&A questions to our panelists, and we'll post the answers in RLP Nation to make sure everyone gets their answers. Okay, so let me share a little bit more about Rachel before we bring her to the virtual stage. Mike, can you move the slide forward? So prior to becoming a realtor, Rachel was a social worker. She got licensed in 2005. She joined Ottawa's top team part-time for 5 years. And later in her career, she wanted to form a team and joined Royal LePage Team Realty in 2015, and now has a team of 5 with 3 agents and 2 assistants. Her why is that everyone deserves a realtor they can trust, and integrating her social work background, her client motto or value proposition is that she's your go-to real estate counselor for life. Rachel's primary business comes from repeat and referral. So please join me in welcoming Rachel to the virtual stage. Mike, am I supposed to be able to see Rachel?
She's up now. Can you see?
Oh, okay. Sorry. I only see myself. So,
I know.
oh,
I got
you know what?
really
We're
busy.
going to unshare the screen, right?
Yeah, I know. I got really
Oh,
busy
sorry.
in the background. There's a lot going on in the background. I'm trying to sort out things with Kiki and see what we can do. So I'm going to cancel the
Sorry.
spotlight. Now you can both be on the screen.
Okay. We've got Kiki on screen now, but I see Rachel at the very top.
Well, it all depends on the way you have it set up, right? So right
I
now,
got it.
my
Okay.
screen.
Now I see you. Okay. Perfect. It's probably who's talking, right?
Yep.
Okay. Great. It's great to see you in person, Rachel.
Nice to see you too, Carolyn.
Okay, so when we were chatting, I was really impressed that you took the opportunity to re-engineer your processes during the pandemic, especially your listing presentation process. I think this started because you were just kind of getting bombarded by the volume of inquiries, but can you share a little bit with us about, what you changed and how that's worked for you?
Yes. So I know a lot of people got very savvy with Zoom meetings and doing listing presentations by Zoom, but similar to this is very, it's not something you can interact with very much. So I always find that talking to people on the phone, which is of course what we all do best as realtors, was a really important part of communicating with my future sellers, because everyone started to panic. In Ottawa, most of us for the first quarter sold homes to people without selling their current home. So a lot of us were scrambling on identifying whether or not we had enough time before having to actually put people on the market. So a lot of sellers were very nervous. So it's a lot of phone calls took place about taking sellers off the ledge, understanding that this was just a moment in time and that if they wanted to just be a little bit more patient, we could help. That being said, though, some people did really want to go on the market right away. So it was a lot of phone calls, a lot of explaining who we are and taking the time before meeting a client, which I think is a big part of what the pandemic did for a lot of us, is taking the time to really nurture the relationship before actually meeting face to face. So having conversations about how we work, who we were, our values, all the things that we do for our clients was a really important part of it. And then what I refer to as our little magic sauce was taking the time to put together an email explaining our scope of services. So it's not so much just telling people what we do, but actually putting it in words and breaking it down for people, including our fees, which I think is something that a lot of people are scared to do. They're scared to talk about what we're worth. But when we're in a moment where, our health matters more than actually going to do a free, evaluation of a home, it was an important time to reflect on what our priorities were and identifying who a real client was and not who a customer was who just simply wanted to know how much their house was worth. So what was really cool was during the course of, April, May, and June, we used this scope of services email with any potential leads that came in for sellers. And what it did was that it allowed people to get to know us differently than what we're traditionally used to. And with that in mind, a lot of people thought that it was a really quick way of, getting to know us, getting the information they needed, and making an informed decision. So we actually listed a lot more homes in a very short period of time because we took away hours of, evaluations of homes and time in the house interviewing for the position. And instead we're focusing strictly on the work. So it was a great opportunity to get better at what we do. Another thing that I think was important is that we set COVID protocols on our website. We put together articles for our clients in our newsletters to explain to them that, despite everything happening, we were working safely. And of course, a big thank you to Roy LePage for all the policies and the procedures and the protocol, the questions to ask, the legal team that came together for us. And I think that's a huge part of the success is that all the infrastructure to help us empower our clients to know that we can list them, in a safe way was there for us. So we took advantage of it. We ordered the PPE material from Roy LePage, and we really took the time to create even online ways of asking for the questions for COVID. So people didn't have to, fill out paperwork with us. We actually created like a little kind of app to create that quick way of checking and looking at our homes. And we use that as a way to showcase why we were on top of it and better than the rest.
Awesome. And I think you actually said even working your online leads, you were able to kind of ask for more to really be able to discern, who was just looking versus who was serious, right?
Yes, and I think that a lot of the ways we worked in this pandemic were, quite frankly, a lot of ways I've always wanted to work in this business. Where when people say to me, or they send us a question through Realtor.ca or the Royal LePage website, asking us to see a house. Well, it's not just about seeing a house right now. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're coming from. I have questions to ask you. And I took it one step further with our team. We actually went as far as to say that in order to see a home, we required a driver's license as well as working with a realtor document signed. And I know a lot of people say, well, what's the point of people signing something? And I'm a firm believer in the psychology of what you're asking people to do. It's easy for people to ask someone else to do something for them, but you need to turn around and also demand that they also participate in providing something back. So asking for the driver's license, having them sign a working with a realtor. And a lot of people were kind of surprised by this. They were taken back. They're like, nobody else is asking us for this. And that was a perfect opportunity to talk about representation, because a lot of people didn't understand what representation was. So it's a lot more time was explained as to what we do and why we do it. And for that, we actually, again, converted a lot of buyers who felt that we were taking things very seriously, very professionally. Our clients appreciated it. And more importantly, we didn't waste any time with dead leads this summer.
That's great. So I remember when we were chatting, you're saying it's great because it actually elevates the professionalism of the industry at large, and really helps both you and your sellers and buyers. Fabulous.
That's exactly it. It really did elevate. It really offered us an opportunity as professionals to showcase that. And again, explain the why. Why do we have you sign something? What does representation really mean? Why do I need to know who you are and where you live? And if you weren't willing to give me even one piece of advice, one piece of that information, or better yet, at that point, you'll tell me you have a realtor, that really changed the game for us.
Yeah, great. Okay, so now in terms of generating new business, top of mind awareness is super, super important. And when the market had a lot more listings, you could do that through yard signs. But then obviously through Phil's charts, we saw there was a period just with not a lot of listings. So how were you able to keep your sort of physical brand awareness in the marketplace? And how did you stay top of mind while also being a great community advocate?
So donating to community is a very big part of my world. Our team, we value very much, as realtors, I see us as community developers. And with that in mind, we really took on the opportunity to spearhead a lot of local support by showcasing local employers. Every week we picked a theme. So we started off with, I believe, one of the first weeks that things got a little uncomfortable in March was it was the week of International Dog Day. So we all put our pictures of our dogs up, and we talked about a local pet shop, and we asked everybody to share our page on social media, so our Facebook, our Instagram, Twitter, and so forth. And so we were giving away gift certificates to that employer. When some of our clients online saw what we did, one of them in particular being a teacher approached us and actually educated us about a program that was helping families in crisis from the Ottawa Public School Board, and asked us if we would promote this education fund that was a way of giving money quickly and swiftly to families who needed it. So not only did we go and spend several days, if not, I believe, a week or two, supporting this, but for every person who liked and shared it, we donated $1 for that like and share. So it actually created a huge awareness to this program. They raised thousands of dollars because of that. And it allowed us to look to people online, to our clients, that not only do we say we're going to do this at the best of times, we're going to do this at the hardest times. So, what was really exciting is that you kind of learn a lot about yourself when you're in a moment of trauma or tragedy. And you kind of get to feel this opportunity to be a leader. And as a team, we really took the time to appreciate local restaurants, caterers, We participated in catering to nurses at hospitals, frontline workers everywhere, with meals. And we don't always talk about all of those things. And I think that's an important part. I think sometimes, a lot of people like to put everything out there, but it was an opportunity to keep people aware of who we were. Our brand was out there, and we just changed our focus. Instead of it being about real estate, it became about the community, and it really helped us.
Great, fabulous. Now, another point we talked about that I thought was really interesting, also demonstrating your leadership, is you talked about ways that you could keep your team motivated because it was a tough time, especially for buyer agents. So can you share with us a little bit more about that?
Yes, so Ottawa, as you've heard, has become an incredibly hot city, and it happened very quickly. And what was really difficult was getting anybody motivated off a couch. Let's be honest. In May, it was tough. We were all on Zoom meetings and all sorts of different programs online. But how do you, staying home for so long, especially for what we do, our offices are actually our cars, right? So now we're sitting at home. And for many of us, I became a teacher, a cleaning lady, a cook. I took on a lot of jobs I didn't think I was really good at, and I tried my best like everyone else did. But I was constantly reminding the team that we are not working at our best. We are working at our good enough. And I think sometimes we forget that even good enough is good. And focusing on finding the little things that kept us happy. So I'm a big believer in sharing gifts and surprising our team and rewarding them with various little surprises that I like to do for them. So if it wasn't for flowers that were delivered to their homes when they felt that they needed it most, or fancy pens to write those agreements and feel good with their little diamonds on them, those were the little things that we did. But more importantly, to stay motivated is also to remember what was important. And what was important was making sure their time was efficient and that they weren't wasting it on people who weren't really ready to do anything with this market. What they were really doing was participating in real estate because it was something they can do. And it wasn't the time to show those kinds of buyers homes at that time. It was time to focus on that. So keeping the team motivated really comes down to a feeling that I have personally, where the number one client you should always think of is yourself.
Great. Very great. Okay, so now I think you also mentioned it's been a tough time for consumers, right? The market's been volatile, it's been changing. And so you really have to manage their expectations. And you need to do that well. The agents that do that well will be the agents that succeed. So how did you find that you had to, change to do that in your market?
Managing clients' expectations in our industry is a huge part of what we do at the best of times. But at this particular time, in this particular market, how quickly things were moving, how much things were selling for, it was really just a matter of explaining to people that there was a lot more to do before going to actually see a house. It wasn't just about seeing a pretty home anymore. It really was about going to the bank or speaking to their bank representative and being sure they truly qualify for what they can afford and managing that expectation, because we all want what we want, but it's what do we really need? So it's assessing people's wants and needs as opposed to what they like. And really through a process of elimination, we focused on certain areas, but once we figured out what they needed, once they've gone to the bank. So the bank was very much the important part. Then market knowledge. I mean, in Ottawa, what was very difficult was we were seeing prices all over the place. So how do you manage people losing 5, 6 offers before they actually win? And that's really about, it's about being that coach for people. And I think that's something that we forget that we do and that we need as skills, is to remind them that the best home is yet to come, that they lost and there was good reason for it. And to this day, after 15 years of in this business, I tell every client this, and I'm happy to share this with you all, is I've never been in a position where someone bought something and said, darn, I really wish I got that last home I sold. I didn't get, right? That sold without me. It was really just a matter of them finding that perfect fit and getting them excited about it. So sometimes you have to go through that process to get there. So assessing them, and more importantly, and I think this is a big one, is saying no. Feel confident as a professional that we all are, that we, how we work and what we know about our markets and our homes. If your gut as an agent tells you there's no way they're going to get this house, then why go through that process? And I know a lot of times it's, well, my client really wanted me to do it and I knew they weren't going to win it. And there's a time and a place for all of those scenarios, but as long as you're not doing it with the same client over and over again. And I think that's the hard part, is managing clients' expectations also comes from being able to feel confident about the homes in your area and how much they're worth.
Great. Perfect. Okay, so now just to wrap this section, if you had one piece of advice to give all your peers listening today, what would it be?
I think the best advice, and I have to say that I certainly thought about this, and I reached out to my wonderful branch manager, Karen Pinn, here in Ottawa, to ask from her perception what she felt was also the best advice. And funny enough, we both came up with the same response, which is really to slow down. I think that one of the things I would really love to share with everybody that I think is so important to think about is that we're all employed. We're working. There are many people we know, family members. I know I could say from personal experience, 15 years ago when I went into this business, a lot of people around me said, what are you doing? Like, you have a government job. What are you doing? And here I am 15 years later, watching my friends take 25% cuts, watching friends who've been employed for 13 that are now unemployed. And here we are as realtors participating and being an active member of the economy of continuing to keep so many people employed. I remember the best advice that I heard from Royal LePage management back in May was that for every home, and I believe this came from Phil Soper, but for every home that gets sold, how many people out there are employed because of that? Movers, stagers, bankers, lawyers, home inspectors. There's so many different trades, so many different industries that we helped keep together and keep employed. And I think we should all be proud of ourselves. But right now it's an opportunity to slow down, think about what you loved, about what you've done over the last few months, and also think about the stuff that you don't love. And that perhaps now is the time to think about all those waitresses or hostesses that are unemployed right now that could be really great client care coordinators or assistants to you. These are opportunities now to take a moment and explore what you have done and what you haven't, and focus on a development plan. I know for ourselves, for our team, we're very much focused on 2021 and we're excited. We think it's going to be a wonderful year.
Excellent. Well, Rachel, you are totally inspirational. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom, and stay there in case we have Q&A for the end. So thank you so much, Rachel. Okay, so now let me share a little more about Karen before we bring her to the virtual stage. So prior to becoming a realtor, Karen worked in advertising research as well as accounting and bookkeeping. She actually also bought and sold investment property. She became licensed in 2007 and has a smaller team now with one additional team member and one part-time assistant. She has found her true calling and wishes that she had in fact started in real estate 20 years ago. She loves it because she gets such great satisfaction from helping people find their journey home and making their dreams come true. Karen's primary source of business is also repeat and referral. So welcome, Karen, to the virtual stage.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Great to see you virtually.
Thank you.
Okay, so I thought it was important to call this out because I think, as with everyone at the beginning, everybody was a little bit nervous about the pandemic, and you were too, but you found a way to get yourself motivated and to feel comfortable. So can you share with us a little bit about how that happened?
Yes, I think in the beginning, most people I spoke to, including myself, we were a little bit scared. I mean, we didn't know if it was safe to take people into people's homes and show them homes because nobody really knew, how infectious this was going to be. But I was really fortunate because my husband is an ICU physician. So he was able to calm me down and say, you can do your job and you can do it safely. There are just precautions you have to take. So we spoke about infectious diseases, and we spoke about the fact that healthcare professionals work with infectious diseases all the time and don't catch them. And that made me a little bit calmer, able to calm my clients down as well and say to them, it is quite safe to wear a mask, sanitize, not touch things. When you go into a home, you're not taking anything in and you're not bringing anything out. So
Right.
I was fortunate to have that advice.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now you described your success in the pandemic very much like succeeding when moving from a cold market to a hot market. In fact, you said that another realtor had counseled you as such in the last downturn with some valuable advice, which you applied then as you did this time too. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so I think that whether you're in a pandemic or any kind of change in the market, the same guidelines really apply. Remembering that, going back to your basics and remembering that real estate is less about sales and more about making connections, establishing trust, and educating people so that they can make the decisions that are the right decisions for them. So in 2008, when the market crashed, we navigated through that slow market by advertising more, educating more, connecting with our clients more, to build our market share, because in a hot market, you're so busy just getting through every day like we are now that you really don't have time to think about marketing or market share. You're just answering your appointments and selling homes. So it's only really in a slow market that you can take that time. So early in my real estate career, one of the agents in my office gave me a piece of advice just when I was sitting on a floor duty, which turns out to be the best advice I ever had. And shout out to Louise Roy for that. She said, you have to take listings and you have to hold listings, because when the market turns, it turns so quickly that the person with all the listings makes all the sales. And she was absolutely right. That happened to me in 2016, 17, and it happened to me again in this last year. So inventory decreases really quickly when a market changes. And in the pandemic, like our previous panel member said, and Phil referred to as well, sellers were reluctant to list. They didn't know if they wanted people walking through their homes. So lack of inventory became an even more significant factor. And unfortunately, by the time a seller decides that it's the right time to list, it's often too late. They've missed the boat. So for us, we looked back to what happened in 2008, when the market collapsed, and we remembered all those years that were slow and how when it turned quickly, and we applied the same ideas, which was keep in touch with your people, build your market share, advertise more, not less, and those things helped us to navigate our way through the pandemic.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. Getting back to the core fundamentals of how to do the business, and it applies even more so in a tougher market. So you've touched on this a little bit, but a lot of the realtors that I know that have done really well, just like you said, kept on advertising throughout the pandemic, but it was about shifting the messaging, and you also reached out to your clients, again, shifting the messaging. Can you talk a little bit about how that messaging would have changed throughout this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So we on our print advertising, we had a banner added that, told people that we could show their homes safely and that we were taking precautions and working within government guidelines, just to give them that comfort. We also kept in touch with our clients, past and present, and offered to help them with anything they needed, whether it was delivering groceries, collecting medications, even giving them masks and hand sanitizers, which they couldn't get and we were able to source. So the other thing is we had clients who'd sold in January, February, and early March, who now were terrified that they had to get out of their houses and they'd be homeless. So we managed to calm them down and take the time so that they could still find a home. And we didn't have anybody homeless. We managed to find everybody somewhere to live. And I think that a lot of people turn to their realtors during this time. And that pandemic lockdown here in BC was a time when realtors really shone. I mean, especially at Royal LePage, we took early steps to make sure that we practiced safe real estate. Our managing broker at Royal LePage here, Ian Mackay, was a fantastic leader. Our owner, Clinton Miller, shout out to Clinton. He had regular Zoom meetings so we didn't feel isolated. Royal LePage head office, as you know, sent out a huge amount of information. And I mean, information is power. The more information you have, the less scared you are and the more able you're to move forward. So we were super proud to be part of the team. And I think that people realize that when lots of businesses didn't straight up take those kind of precautions, the real estate industry as a whole has not only taken the precautions up front, but we've carried on with those precautions long past the time when anyone else is. And I think it's reflected incredibly well on us as an industry.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I definitely think that I think through all of the panelists, you've all said it's been a great time for real estate, especially all the realtors that have followed all the precautions in a time when the industry is shone in terms of also helping all of your consumers feel comfortable and safe and get transactions done. So thank you for sharing all of that. You, just like Rachel, mentioned that one of the biggest challenges in this market has been managing consumer expectations, especially in your market. You've talked about how the valuations have really shifted maybe 2 or 3 different times throughout the pandemic even. And you said that the best client is an educated client. Tell me more about how you go about educating your clients.
Well, you know, during the early stages of the pandemic, people were very anxious about values falling. And part of our job as realtors was to, I mean, we couldn't tell them that that wasn't going to happen, especially because the media was so, especially CMHC, right? They were,
yeah,
prices are going to drop and everything. It was all doom and gloom. But what we could share with them was that we were not, you know, I think as realtors, we instinctively know what's happening in the market before it even happens. The stats maybe bear out what we feel a month or 2 later. But at the time, we just get a feeling, and then you talk to other realtors in your office and they have the same feeling. We weren't seeing a slowdown in the number of people wanting to move to our area, in the number of buyer inquiries we were having. We were just seeing a slowdown in the number of in the amount of inventory. So I think we were able to reassure our sellers that actually there was still a market there. And while if they listed their houses, there would be far fewer showings, the showings that they were would be really serious. And like the previous panel person said, it was actually a pleasure to only work with clients who were serious instead of spending time and wasting a lot of your time like you do on clients who were not serious. So that was a positive thing during the pandemic for sure. Yeah. And I think with buyers and sellers, just calming them down and letting them not panic about the situation and realize, you know, in 2008, when the market collapsed, everyone thought it would never come back again. And of course it did, because it always does.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were able to say to them, you know, this is, as you said, a moment in time and it'll pass.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe to wrap it up, we're 7 months into the pandemic, so it's been some time and there's still some time to go. How do you stay motivated during the pandemic? What keeps you motivated, and what can you share with others on that front?
Well, I've always been motivated by continuous learning. Every course you do, every book you read brings something new to think about. Every person you talk to, every conversation you have, even listening today. Already I was making notes of ideas of things that I want to do as a result of what I've heard today. So it is easier, obviously, to be motivated when the market is busy. But I think most of all, you have to go back to those basics and remind yourself of why you do this. So for me, it's all about the concept of home and family. The concept of home is at the center of everything we do. Home is a sanctuary, and during the pandemic, home has become even more important and even more of a sanctuary to people. Always reminded of Herman Melville's quote, "Life is a voyage that's homeward bound." And I've traveled and I've lived all over the world in many different cultures, and the concept of home is central to the fabric of most societies. So we are just privileged to be involved in making home happen every day. I can't think of a better profession to have, a more rewarding one.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your motivations today with us, Karen. Stay there in case we have time for questions, but thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, all right. So now let me share a bit more about Carlo before we bring him to the virtual stage. Carlo's journey is a little bit different. He entered his first Royal LePage real estate office at the tender age of 6, possibly in a Halloween costume, with his father, who was both a realtor and a broker. He got the bug immediately and became an agent as soon as he legally could in Montreal in 1991, and then moved to Guelph in 2010. As you've seen, every one of our panelists is very service-oriented and grateful for all they have. Carlos sees each day as a gift, and Carlos' why is so that he can volunteer in the community and also take a bit of time for himself to go riding. Carlo, as many of you know, is definitely part of our Shelter Riders group. Carlo's motto is he wants to get to the heart of a client's needs and provide the real state of real estate. Carlo's main source of business is repeat and referral, smart leads, and RLP Sphere. So welcome to the virtual stage, Carlo.
Hello, Carolyn. Bonjour tout le monde. How is everybody?
We're doing great. Love your happy, shiny demeanor.
Oh, thanks very much. I have to tell you, I'm super nervous, and there were some. Alicia noticed my personal grooming going on in the background.
Oh yes, I saw that.
And
I saw
yes,
that.
and I was goofing around. No inappropriate touching of the nose is supposed to take place.
You're going to be great.
All righty.
Okay, so when the pandemic first started, you immediately, just like both Karen and Rachel said, immersed yourself in self-development, and you
Yes.
gained access to something 3 weeks early because you're smart and tech savvy. So can you tell us what you did?
Well, yeah, I know enough about computers to get myself into a whole slew of trouble. And I figured when RLP Sphere soft launched, you just can't, restrict the tap into one region of the country and not have it flowing to everybody from coast to coast. So I remembered there was a quick step to gain access to the RLP Sphere outside of the RLP network. So I just did the rlpnetwork.com/RLP Sphere and logged in that way and started exploring the RLP Sphere platform, participating in the KV Core training that they offered for all realtors that are part of the KV Core platform across North America, and really started to immerse myself from as soon as it was possible, because it spoke to me when Phil spoke about it, launched it, I guess maybe even at in Halifax almost 2 years ago, and then certainly again at Head Start, and then more recently in January when he spoke to the 519 area code group when he was doing the tours. The concept of what the Sphere seemed to offer, it really resonated. Not just because I've been a realtor for 30 years, but I could see how it's pertinent to the raw recruit, the person who's starting, who has already gotten their feet wet, and then somebody like me who essentially relaunched my career, albeit 10 years ago, from unplugging from one jurisdiction and starting fresh in a new one. And I can tell you, those challenges are huge and not easily overcome. But a platform like the Sphere, RLP Sphere, will, I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt, and it's already been transformative for me since it launched in May, June or July officially for those of us in Ontario.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you've described RLP Sphere as a system you've been looking for 30 years,
Yes.
and that your old systems were kind of bubblegum and Rolodex.
Yeah,
so
bubblegum wrappers and Rolodex. Look, I've seen, for those of us who know, I've been with the company since 1991, of course, and so I've seen the various iterations of Royal LePage, Royal LePage Info Home systems, how the technology has evolved, being kind of the tip of the spear when royallepage.ca first launched, and seeing how it's evolved to where it is today, and then also having participated like years ago, Online Agent, Top Producer, I guess, would have been one of the earlier CRM management systems that were okay, but I never felt that they were fully developed and fully inclusive. There's another fellow years ago too, Danny Moe. The Danny Moe system, folks might remember, it was a pleather portfolio with index cards, and you would slide in visual reminders of, oh yeah, the type of houses that people were looking for, and you would flip through that too, and use that with limited success, because again, it wasn't as intuitive as I've discovered that the RLP Sphere platform is, and those daily reminders. I mean, I could get lost in trying to describe how robust and effective it is. It is a game changer for me personally. It has been.
The two things that you told me about that really stuck with me. A, the property boost. So those are ways to
Yep,
have an easier kind of click, maybe just a couple of clicks to advertise your listings on Facebook, and you've generated a ton of leads that way. But I think the
absolutely.
thing that's stuck with me the most in terms of what you said is that you realized you could be working directly with buyers and sellers, and you can only do those one-to-one relationships at a certain pace. But all of your entire database is being proactively managed in a passive way, but that feels really organic and human. And all of a sudden, instead, that database isn't a digital Rolodex, but it now is kind of this living, breathing, organic thing. And it's rising up all the warm leads and the hot leads. And they're saying, hey, Carlo, can I see this, rather than you having to cold call them.
Absolutely. It's become a two-way communication rather than just like, I don't feel that I'm hidden behind a display or behind a circuit board at all. It's odd. I don't know how best to describe, but there does seem to be that connection between the user consumer experience and what the Sphere will have to offer folks, whether it's primarily like all of the channels that exist within the Sphere. And I think probably the keystone is the out of the box personal websites that we all have. That for me, I recognize that as being my primary channel, and then everything else dovetails or like cogs in gears comes together from there. So speaking specifically about property boosts, like the biggest difference and advantage that I'm enjoying by boosting properties within the KV Core platform is that those contacts that sign up or click through the Facebook ad are filtered directly into the Sphere. So they become part of my pipeline. By contrast, the traditional method of boosting a Facebook post, well, yeah, you'd see the interactions, you'd see how many views you had or how many likes or what have you, but not really gaining any concept or contact information as to, like, no bones to it, just a lot of fluff. That's okay. You can go back to your seller and say, oh, we've had 1,200 engagements, but what's the net result? How many consumer inquiries have you generated? Now I can tell them, and I did one for one of our most recent listings. I did a property boost for open house. We have a virtual open house tomorrow. So it's just a 3-day boost, and within the first 2 days already, 20 new inbound consumer inquiries. I think about 1,400 interactions. So there is more meat, I can say, that I can share with the seller client. And then also nurture those relationships that have been established by virtue of those click-throughs. Now, it's not. I've seen it in myself that, yeah, every time I've got the phone call or an inquiry, I'm swinging for the fences. And I'm learning to adapt to say, it's great to, and having that opportunity to swing away is fantastic, but watch the pitches. Don't always, I'm finding myself pacing the communication so that it becomes more of a conversation and not so much of, I got you now, let's get out and go shopping. It's really more measured and a measured, tapered approach that that the platform nurtures while I'm busy doing other things. I get text messages back from folks saying, thanks for the text message. I didn't send it. The platform sent it. They don't know it, but it's that that they're engaged and they're not lost on my desk. They're not lost in a Rolodex. They're not shunted away. I get the daily reminders of my tasks and phone calls to do.
So yeah, it elevates your service level.
It does,
elevates
absolutely.
your service level, and you don't even have to do anything extra except for the setup.
Except for the setup. Yep. Yeah.
Great. Now, you also mentioned that it kind of gave you greater confidence in approaching new clients. Can you share with the group a little bit about how it helped to improve your
Yeah.
confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on the daily basis, and I do log in every day, and I'm on right now, in fact. So by looking at the dashboard, I am able to see who's been active on my website, what listings that they've been looking at. There are little icons that tell me that, oh, this is a hot search. So you can see that the details are bounded in yellow, and there's a little flame icon in there. So it's a visual cue to, and reminders say, oh, I better reach out to these people because they're engaged and they're active. Also, the benefit of being able to see, well, what platform have they been using? Are they on a desktop or are they using their mobile device? It tailors what medium I use to reach out to those folks. I'm not going to send an email if I know they've been on their mobile device 20 minutes ago. Chances are they're still on their mobile device or they've got it nearby. So fire off a quick text and rent that mental headspace and engage them in a conversation. Really, for me, it's changing the dynamic to changing the dynamic to engaging in a conversation and leading them hopefully to, at best, meeting at the office and then going over the review documents, especially the COVID disclosure forms, and then at the really basic level, the working with the realtor informational document, so that they understand the difference between consumer and client services available to them here in Ontario.
Great. Now, you've also said that part of why you were able to really reach your goal, because you set a big goal to increase your GCI over 2019, is RLP Sphere. So can you share with the group how much more business you've had as a result of RLP Sphere and what your pipeline looks like as a result of that?
I'm not usually one to boast, but yeah,
Not
my
boast.
whiteboard, I think I have about well, for me it's significant for me, for sure. So it's there's about 10 or 11 trades still to be closed between now and December the 2nd of this year. So yeah, it's
I think
I lost that train of thought. So yeah, it's been busy, and
yeah. Crystal says boast away.
I know. Thanks, Crystal. Thanks, people. It's
Let me say it for Carlo, just one thing, because this is when we were preparing for media, because Carlo is our featured agent for the media that we did on this. And from the beginning, it was about an extra, deal a month, right? Which is pretty significant.
Pretty much. Well, for example, there was about 3 weeks ago, I'm closing on the 2nd of November. A lady reached out to us, and it's in conjunction with not only the RLP Sphere, but also Smart Leads and integrating all of those platforms. And that's where, like, the Sphere in relation to everything else, and having all of those channels or funnels coming into RLP Sphere, it's integral to leveraging and being productive. So in inbound through Smart Leads, asking about condos for investment, the individual wanted to see 4 of them. 2 of them had already sold, so we relegated to just seeing 2 in the same building. I think I showed her on a Friday or a Saturday, and by Sunday or Monday we were negotiating, and within 24 hours we were done. Now, they're not all like that. They're not. It's not that fast a turnaround. But if it weren't for integrating all of those elements and stitching them together, like years ago or even 9 months ago, it might not have happened. Like I'm not as confident that it would have happened that
right.
quickly.
It keeps you organized.
Oh, it does, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so now it is a lot to learn, and you're pretty tech savvy. So what advice would you give to those who aren't as tech savvy, want to get to learn this? Like, how should they get started?
Go at your own pace. That's the beauty of the whole thing. You don't have to rush into it. I wouldn't recommend that you rush into it. It's vast, intensive, extensive. What's the old saying? The way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And that's how essentially how I started it. Unlike the coaching or what was suggested in terms of the bulk upload, I did it a different way, and then really immersed myself in classifying or reclassifying the contacts in my database. Right now I've got it's a small list, but I've got 623 contacts. I think when I started, I probably had maybe 400, and I piecemealed it. I set myself, it wasn't even a fixed quota. It was between 20 and 100 classifications per day. And within the month, by the end of, I'd say, yeah, but certainly by the end of May or into June, I had a fairly good idea as to who was going to just be in the sphere, who was going to be a prospect, who would be a lead, who was a client, because I already had those listings in play. And then by doing so, becoming familiar with how, not what it does, but how it does what it does. And my feeling on all of this is that it's great to feature dump or show the benefits of what the platform can do, but that's only a half measure. The more complete measure is articulating and conveying and communicating to all of us how it does what it does and why it does what it does.
Perfect. So I think Carlo's saying, don't feel the pressure to be an expert in every part of the system. Feel comfortable doing it piecemeal, learning one piece at a time. I've heard a couple agents say, they haven't don't feel the pressure to make sure that everyone in your database is in there perfectly. They kind of are reclassifying a little bit every single night. And Carlos said he learned a little bit more about the system every single time he did something like that. And when Carlo was sneaky and got in early and was looking at the KV Core training, Carlos also participated in all of the Royal LePage Learning Services training. And Mike, did you want to put a link into that? So for anybody that is interested, because of what Carlo has said, there are 5 90-minute in-depth sessions that are going on over the course of the next couple months. They're being repeated at various intervals. So if you're interested, jump in, learn a little bit at a time, try things in the system, and hopefully you can realize all the things that Carlo has already realized. Okay, great.
The neat thing too about the learning portal, you can go back to it as often as you want and take
Absolutely.
your time and relearn or review and pick up those nuggets of information on, how to set up a property boost, or creating a market report for those contacts that are within the pipeline. It's great to be able to reach out to those individuals either every 7, 14, 21, or 28 days with a geographic market report for the city that you're in. And again, it's all of those little touch points that take up rental space in people's heads to, tear a page out of Buffini's systems and platforms.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Carlo. I am sure that Mike and Alicia are going to tell me that we don't have time for live Q&A, but we will make sure to get every single Q&A out to Karen, Rachel, and to Carlo, and we will post their answers on RLP Nation. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to our esteemed panel, to Rachel, to Karen, to Carlo. If you think about each of their strategies, they were all somewhat different and they all work. So there are different ways to success. With Rachel, it was about re-engineering a lot of her processes, to add that additional professionalism while better serving her team and her customers, or clients, I should say, right? Karen really focused back on the fundamentals. In tougher times, it's all about the fundamentals and making sure that we're doing everything in that manner in a successful way. And with Carlo, he looked at what his brokerage and Royal LePage Canada had to offer from a technology standpoint that really helped him, grow his business during the pandemic. So hopefully you took some things away from each of them and have some inspiration for your businesses as you return. And as Karen said, Royal LePage realtors have really shone through this pandemic. So kudos to all of our panel, to all of you out in the network. You make us all so proud. Thank you so much.
And Carolyn,
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I just put up the emails for Rachel and Karen and Carlo, because, you know, one of the things sometimes in panels is maybe you identify really with these people and you say, hey, you know what, I want to reach out to Rachel to ask about something. And I'm sure all of you, I'll just put it out there, but I know every panel I've ever had, they've always said, hey, we're happy to get questions. So here's their emails. If you have questions, you want to ask them directly, jot them down and go nuts, connect.
Thanks, Mike.
My
Thank you
email
so
isn't
much,
right
Mike.
there. It's just C de Castris. It's not Carlo de Castris.
Oh, sorry about that. I did update that, but this was apparently version control. Thank you, Carlo.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Carolyn, Carlo, Rachel, and Karen for those excellent insights. When it comes to RLP Sphere, so much work has been done for Sphere. You know, Rome was never built in a day, and nothing worth having comes super easy. So please take some time and really invest in the platform. It will be sure to blow your mind, and head to rlp.ca/training. And we have a number of learning services led training sessions to help you get up and running with RLP Sphere. So with that said, before we go into our guest speaker, I'm just going to take a few minutes and talk to you about preferred suppliers. So let me just tee up my presentation here. Slideshow, fabulous. Okay, so really want to talk to you today about Royal LePage preferred suppliers. So if any of you have used Royal LePage preferred suppliers, please do name them in the chat. Name your favorites, who you love. If you have any suggestions about prospective Royal LePage preferred suppliers, of course, we're all ears. I do love a good pitch. So please put those in the chat, and we'll definitely take those away and do some work on that. But really, you know, we have a very robust preferred supplier program. We have, you know, approximately 30 different preferred suppliers that fall into all these categories that you see here. So really, you know, we have things from, you know, lifestyle, so retail, home services, that sort of thing, to preferred suppliers that can really help you with your business. So whether it's, you know, marketing or financial services, that kind of thing, there really is something for everyone. When I look at the list, I mean, we have, like I said, 30. We have a very, very wide list here. I won't be able to touch on all of them today in this presentation, but, you know, we have Just Sell Homes. We have a digital marketing agency who is full service and can help you with any of your needs in that respect. We have O2E Brands. For those of you that aren't familiar with O2E, they are the parent company for 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and for Wow One Day Painting and Shackshine as well. So those are really heavily used by a lot of our agents. And you can pass those through to homeowners. So whether they're a client or your prospect, it doesn't matter. They can take advantage of some amazing discounts there. And this is really what the program's all about. It's all about providing value to you, the agent, and in some cases to homeowners as well. So we're always looking for vendors that have special offers for our clients and prospects to really, you know, increase the stickability with us and, you know, the agent and the brand. And make sure that when they're, you know, going into their new home, they're really having the best experience possible. So we do have a very wide list. We're always looking to bring on new preferred suppliers. So again, if you have suggestions, please, we're all ears. And actually, you know, preferred suppliers come and go. But recently, we've actually done a very good job in the last few years with retaining these preferred suppliers. Some of them like to go and, you know, revisit their strategies and their industry verticals. But we have actually been able to keep the majority of our preferred suppliers and establish really great relationships with them. So that is really why we do it. It's for you to make sure that you, the brokers and the agents, you know, have great offers available from reputable companies. Preferably ones that can service the country as a whole, and obviously have access to discounts on products and services offered by them. So we have 2 new ones this year. We've got TELUS, which I'll speak to in a moment. We also have Intuit QuickBooks. So tax time is kind of over, but we'll certainly be hearing from them early on in the new year. And we do have 2, well, definitely 1, potentially 2 coming on before the end of the year. I can tell you about one of them. I won't spill the beans quite yet, but we will have another auto manufacturer coming on before the end of the year. So all very exciting stuff, lots happening in the preferred supplier world. So you're probably asking, well, this is all very nice, Alicia, but where do I hear more about these offers and what's available to me. So Laura is going to be posting some links in the chat. Laura is our lovely marketing specialist who works on the preferred supplier portfolio with me. So she's going to be posting some links throughout the next few moments, but RLP Network really is your go-to for all of the details on these preferred suppliers. So once you log into RLP Network, you'll click on marketing, you'll scroll down and click on preferred suppliers, and you will see the entire list of what is on offer there. All of the vendors are listed. Now we also have a preferred supplier handout that is updated close to monthly, that basically is a slideshow presentation that shows all of the offers that are available to you, and you can print that off and put that up by your desk and just have easy access to that if that's what you prefer. So that really is where to go for all of the information. Now I'll start jumping into a few of my favorite preferred suppliers. Don't tell anyone, because that would be bad. We love them all, but there are some that are specifically applicable to your business, especially now during COVID. So I will start off talking about TELUS. So TELUS is, as I mentioned, our newest preferred supplier, and they have big savings for Royal LePage agents. Now, the one thing to note with TELUS is that this is a TELUS business agreement. So it really works for those who are self-employed and have an HST number. So that's the majority of agents as independent contractors. And they really do have some very generous discounts. So 20% on select peace of mind business mobility plans. They also have multi-line discounts as well. This is for both new and renewing TELUS customers. They also recently threw in their tablet plan. So if a tablet is up your alley, then you can certainly take advantage of that. So we had been looking to fill the void. Rogers, I think, ended their relationship with us in 2018. So this year we were finally able to get a telco company, and that was answering a wish list that we had received from you. Next up is Canada Post. So put a Y in the chat if you use Canada Post in direct mail. I know there are a lot of people that do. I know when it comes to preferred suppliers and people who call into customer care, Canada Post tends to be pretty high on that list. We have actually just updated the page on RLP Network. We do have 2 new account reps for Canada Post, Sandra Bedger and Geneviève Genotte. And they are amazing. They really want to work with you. They're happy to, post-COVID times, obviously, come into your office, speak about neighborhood mail, how it can really benefit your business. They are also running free Canada Post webinars. And my understanding is these are purely for us, for Royal LePagers, on the dates listed here. So all you have to do to actually sign up for these is head to RLP Network. And click on Canada Post, and you can sign up for those webinars. The next one is coming up next week. And those are in English, but we also have French dates available too. So the dates are slightly different, but the topics are the same. And I highly recommend you take the time. It's just an hour. It's a really good investment in your marketing strategy. They are very, very helpful. And we really like working with them. So next up, I wanted to talk about this vendor next and give them kind of a more interesting introduction, because they are a vendor that is whose services are really applicable to now, given that we have to do a lot of things virtually. So this is a photo of a kitchen that I found on realtor.ca. It is not a Royal LePage listing. I didn't want to bring that up. So I won't tell you where it's from, but this is a kitchen, obviously, and the listing says that this house offers lots of possibilities. Now, while I'm sure that that is very true, and don't doubt that for a second, I, like many of you, am a visual learner. And this to me, and to probably a lot of home buyers, does not represent a lot of opportunities. But there is something that can be done about this, and that is where I bring in my next preferred supplier, boxbrownie.com. So with boxbrownie.com, they are an Australian company, so right out of Oz. They are all online. They have amazing customer care. They respond to you instantaneously. They offer virtual staging, 360 virtual tours, image enhancement, floor plans, virtual renovations, and more. So can you imagine just how it would have looked if that agent had taken that photo of the kitchen, maybe done a little virtual reno, even some staging, and just shown prospective buyers what that kitchen could look like. I mean, we're talking about the biggest investment that someone is likely to ever make. So it is a big deal and something that I feel could make a big difference. Now, Box Brownie has a ton of services. They really start from $2 and go up to about $200 and something depending on what you're doing. If it's just an image enhancement, you're paying $2. There is no obligation. All you have to do is sign up for an account on boxbrownie.com. And the good news is that if you're creating a new account, you can use the code RLPROCKS with the exclamation mark. And they made that up, so I, naturally love them already. You'll get a $40 credit dropped into your account, and that is enough to do image enhancement, virtual staging, a lot of different things right off the bat. So this example, I wanted to show you a few before and afters of what they're fully capable of, just because it's a really, really cool platform that I can't say enough about. So our marketing specialist, Laura is from the Ottawa area. Shout out to the 613. And Laura's mother just bought this new home. So this is the living room on the left-hand side. And we wanted to show you exactly what it could look like if we did virtual staging. Now, luckily the house was empty, so we didn't have to remove any furniture, although Box Brownie can do that too. And you'll see exactly what it looks like after. So type a, put an emoji or a yes in the chat if you like what you see, but that certainly to me is a major improvement and something that could really work towards helping to sell a home. So wanted to give a special thanks to the Karen Miller team. So the Karen Miller team are Chairman's Club members out of Royal LePage Signature Realty here in Toronto. They are power users of boxbrownie.com, and they very kindly allowed me to share some of what they have done on the platform with Box Brownie. So this is just an example of a floor plan. So this floor plan, obviously it's a 1-bedroom condo. It's pretty hard to visualize though, right? Like maybe it's a new construction, maybe there aren't images done yet, but what could it look like? And how can you help that buyer really see the true potential of the property? And so, ladies and gentlemen, you ready? There you go. So once it's completely designed, you see the exact use that each space is meant for. The patio, I mean, yikes, if I could find a condo with a patio like that, I'd be made. That is beautiful. But you can really help your buyers visualize the property, and that is really going to help you sell faster. Next up, for one more example, this one's really cool. This one is a virtual renovation example that the Karen Miller team did. And now I want to tell you a bit about kind of their experience with Box Brownie. They actually only started using the platform in April, but they are now power users of the platform. They have gone back to it multiple times and they use it for many of their listings. This basement, I mean, unfinished basements are just a reality, right? Like you come across them a fair bit. I don't know about you, but basements, especially unfinished ones, kind of give me the EBGBs. But it won't give you the EBGBs if you do this with it. So this is a full-on virtual renovation of the basement. I would kill to have a basement like that. This virtual renovations typically start around $30 and can go up to $220. It really depends on what you're asking the designers to do. So, if it's just replacing the flooring, that's one thing. But if you're, taking down walls and doing a full-on like HGTV moment, then it will run you slightly higher. But again, particularly during COVID when, it's hard enough to go in and see the property in person. Open houses are pretty much a no. Stuff like this and the visual representations that Box Brownie allow for will really help sell that home for top dollar faster. So highly, highly recommend Box Brownie. I can't say enough about them, and I hope you'll go and try it out and use your $40 credit. So the next preferred supplier I wanted to speak to is Lexus. Lexus is going to be one of 2 automotive preferred suppliers that we have on board, but they have an amazing offer for Royal LePagers. So they are offering a 1% rate reduction, so down to, max of 0. Obviously you can't do negative, but 1% rate reduction on lease and finance rates. So the majority of you will be leasing or financing based on your business needs. And redeeming this offer is super simple. Now, the thing to keep in mind too, is that the 1% is in addition to current month offers. So say, for example, you go into the dealership and there's like a $3,000 delivery credit on the vehicle that you're looking for. That 1% is in addition to that offer. So once you've finished your negotiating, and I'm sure your negotiating skills are top notch, you're realtors after all. Once you've got the best deal possible, you slide in the 1% and you are driving home in an amazing deal and a beautiful car. So all you have to do to redeem this offer is request your Lexus confirmation letter. So it just confirms that you're a member of the Royal LePage family and that you're eligible for this offer. You'll get it probably within 24 hours and you just take it to the dealership with you and voila, you are behind the wheel of an awesome Lexus. So I hope many of you will take advantage of that. Also keep in mind, and you did not hear this from me, the end of the month is the best time to buy a car because dealerships are trying to hit their monthly targets. So just a little tidbit for you. End of the month is the best time to buy, and a lot of dealerships are looking to make more room for 2021 inventory. So go to. Last but not least, I wanted to speak to you about Tiffany & Co. So I actually saw it in the chat earlier that someone was speaking to Tiffany, and I'd bid on Tiffany if something came available, and heck, I would too. Tiffany & Co. or the answer is no, as they say. So there are some amazing offers from Tiffany. Their holiday catalog is now available. I posted it in the Royal LePage Facebook group, so please check that out. You can make purchases in person, via telephone, or via email. And what you really need is that Royal LePage link account number. So take note of that, or you can head to RLP Network and see that code there. You do get 15% discount on any eligible purchase, and that also includes gift cards. So we are coming up to the holiday season. I don't know about you, but I would rather not be caught in a mall on Christmas Eve. So take advantage of that offer now. There are really some great things, and even the men's jewelry game is on point. So I highly recommend checking them out. Now, before I end, I also wanted to bring your attention to the Welcome Home Package. So the Welcome Home Package really is for you to be able to provide even more value to your clients and prospects. So, your client has just closed on a home, you're going with their gift, their closing gift, and you hand them this package. This package contains really great content, tips and tricks, and it also contains all of the preferred supplier offers that are available to clients. And as I mentioned before, we're always looking to build on that roster of suppliers that have offers for clients. But this is something that you can really take advantage of right away. And it also is fully customizable. So you can have your name, your info, make sure that you stay top of mind with them so that, if they have friends or family that are looking to buy or sell, they will be sure to recommend you. So it comes in both the customizable and the ready to sign version. All you have to do is go to RLP Network, simply print it off or customize it, sign it, and then hand it over. And you've just made sure that you will stay top of mind with both your clients and prospects. I don't discriminate whether it's a prospect or an actual client. It's okay. It's certainly a value add, and I highly recommend sharing it. So with that said, I know I was kind of fast, just trying to keep on time here. If you have any questions or any suggestions, I really do want to hear from you. So please email us at partnerships@royallepage.ca, and we are more than happy to help you. So I hope that was helpful. I'm sorry I wasn't able to view the chat as I was going through this because I'm sharing my screen, but I will go back and take a look. And as mentioned, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. Okay, so now that I am finished with that, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is none other than Ron Tite. He is a purpose-driven leadership and marketing expert. He is named one of the top 10 creative Canadians by Marketing Magazine, and he has been an award-winning advertising writer and creative director for some of the world's most respected brands, including Air France, Evian, Fidelity, Hershey, Johnson & Johnson, Kraft, Intel, Microsoft, Volvo, and many others. Yikes, I don't know how he has the time to fit in more, but anyway, we'll let him talk to that. Ron is the founder of Church and State, an award-winning content marketing agency. He's also the author of 2 books, his most recent being Think, Do, Say, How to Seize Attention and Build Trust in a Busy, Busy World. Please welcome and give a virtual round of applause for Ron Tite.
Well, thank you, Alicia. And how are you doing? Are you okay, Alicia? I can interact with you right now that you're right here.
Ron, I haven't seen a human being in the last probably 5 days. I'm living up north and I haven't actually seen someone in the flesh. So this is a beautiful thing. It's
well, this is Pixel Ron. It's better than Flesh Ron. I'll tell you that. But thank you so much for that kind introduction. And there were a couple of things as Alicia was finishing off there. First of all, thank you for showing us what a renovation can really look like. My wife and I started a renovation. We underpinned our basement, which is really fun. It's really fun and it's very cheap and to do that. And it takes no time at all. So that brought back horrible memories because of course the pandemic made us pause the renovation. And so now we've been at it for over a year. Secondly, the deal with Lexus is fantastic. So finally, maybe some of you realtors can get out of those Mercedes SUVs that my wife and I called the official realtor automobile. It's like, oh, it's the Mercedes SUV. It must be a real estate broker. Okay, there we go. Awesome. So that's amazing that you can do that. And then the picture of the kitchen where, what was the line you said?
it said it was full of possibilities and
possibilities. Okay, here's a little trick for you. You will really want to create opportunity. This is how you do it. Okay, Mitch Hedberg. It's a great bit from Mitch Hedberg. And I looked it up as you were talking so I could get the lines right. And he said, I just bought a 2-bedroom house, but isn't it up to me how many bedrooms it has? I mean, this bedroom has an oven in it. And this bedroom has a bunch of people in a semicircle watching television. This bedroom is also known as a hallway. So you can be really creative. But anyhow, thank you, Alicia, for that.
Thank you.
And hello to everybody out there. I have not been with you since we were in Vegas together. Remember when we would do that? We would get on planes and we go to places like Vegas. And now I'm coming to you from the 3rd floor of my mid-renovated house. Outside is this chaos out there. It's absolute chaos. And Heather Kelly, it's going to get even more funny. Trust me. Heather's got the Mercedes SUV. That's why she's laughing. And Sandra Sheffield, yes, Vegas was a ton of fun. Although, as I said to Christine, if you were there, and you may not remember me because this was the time when Mark Rashad from Belleville, I don't know if you're out there or not, but Mark was with the Clarence Clemens nephew, I believe. And before I went on, Mark and the band did this like big performance. And I turned to the host and I said, how am I supposed to follow that? Like people are on their chairs and they're clapping. It's like, okay, now we have a keynote speaker. Sit down, stop having fun. We have a speaker. And I thought, this is not going to go well at all. I wouldn't want to see me after I just saw Mark and the Clemens kid, whose first name I don't remember. Apologies. But it went well. I think that's because you were in Vegas and seeing a concert break out and just in the middle of a conference, that just seems like a Vegas thing. And then you all just sat down and you're like, all right, we'll see this and then we'll go play poker and then we'll see all that stuff. And thank you, Phil. It was Jake Clemens. So thank you, Phil, for reminding me of what that was. So it's just so amazing to be with you here in this environment. And like many things, there's a lot of good about this. Now, I know, there are different experiences across the country, but this whole pandemic thing has really been different for everybody. And here's what it's been like for me. So March 11th, the pandemic was declared. March 12th, every single speaking gig for the next year got canceled, right? Just all that, just gone, all of it gone. That was March 12th. And then March 13th, yeah, my wife and I went to the hospital and we welcomed this guy in. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. I'm going to do that. There we go. We welcomed this guy into the world, our second son, Ben. And we also have a toddler who's 2.5 years old. So if you think you've had a pretty nutty pandemic, yeah, try hanging out in a lockdown situation with a toddler and a newborn. It's not ideal. It is not ideal in any way, shape, or form. Now, that's, of course, from the personal side. Onto a more professional side. I wanted to know what people were going through. So I asked people, hey, what's the single biggest leadership challenge you've had? And I know, within your worlds of being kind of an owner-operated business, that you may not think of it in that way. But I wanted to just to tell you this there's another point here. But so I said, what's the biggest leadership challenge you've had? Now, within traditional organizations, big organizations with middle managers and stuff, typically people say it's communication from above. And that's what the number one response was for this. Single biggest leadership challenge in the pandemic is communication from above. Second was this idea of the great unknown. And that, how am I supposed to forecast my business? How am I supposed to plan my business? How am I supposed to kind of prepare for the road ahead when I don't know what the road ahead is? I have no idea because we're dealing with an unprecedented pandemic. We have legislation that is going to be coming in. We have protocols to follow, and those are changing on a daily basis. How am I supposed to plan for that? The great unknown. And what I loved about this was a study I did with about 2,000 responses. And I said, somebody said that this is, with this idea of the great unknown, and hi, this is me up here, that we have to manage our desire for certainty with our inability to provide any. Because obviously all of your prospects, all your clients, they want certainty in the world. And that's what you deliver in some sense to them. It's really challenging when you can't. So that was the number two. But what's really interesting to me was this, is that if you look at what those answers were, here are the top 8. Okay, so we've got communication from above, we've got the great unknown, maintaining engagement with people. How do I emotionally support my team as they go through stuff? How do I have this work-life balance? I mean, am I working from home or am I living at the office? I can't really tell anymore. How do I really connect with people? The self-motivation one I thought was really interesting, and that I want to lead by example, but how the hell am I going to gather up the motivation and the energy to deal with all this so that when I go on Zoom, I don't lead to people having Zoom gloom, which is this, like a resting witch face, I'll say, resting witch face. We have to make sure that we don't spread this Zoom gloom. And then finally, how do I ensure that what I do is safe? If I'm having people coming into an open house or signing papers, like how am I doing that in a safe way? So those are the top 8. But here's what's really important about this study that I did. And that those are the top 8. But if you look at the number one response, communication above, it's only 15% of the people. And Jody Flodstedt, why do you want to watch this later? Right? Why do you want to watch this? You're not paying attention now? You got to go do something more important? I think you'll be able to watch it later. And if not, I'll do a one-on-one Zoom call. I'll just do it again for you. So communication from above, number one answer, but it's only 15% of the people. That's it. I mean, how the heck we say this thing over and over and over again, oh, well, we're all in this together. No, we're not. We're not all in this together. We're not all in this together because there are 18 unique responses of the biggest leadership challenge that people are having. We're not all in this together. And if we are in it all together, we're certainly not experiencing it together. There's no way. And so this, to me, is the biggest challenge that you have, that every single one of your clients and your prospects are completely different. They're dealing with completely different things. So we have to adjust about that. Now, well, what does this mean? How do we put this all into perspective? Well, this is, I think, is an interesting metaphor to help you out. Now, I was the creative director on Volvo for a decade, and I grew up in Oshawa, Ontario, the Schwiggity. Hello. And I grew up about a kilometer from, at that point, the largest General Motors plant in the country. So I know a little bit about the car business. And here's what I know about car racing. okay, which is not a ton, but I do know this. I know that anybody can win in a straightaway. Anybody. You just gun it. You just gun it. And whoever prepared the most a year ago by building the biggest engine, you got a pretty good shot of winning in the straightaway. But here's what I also know. I know that no race is ever won in the straightaways. It's not. Races are won in the corners. Now, here's what happens when a car enters a corner. A car enters a corner, and the first thing the driver does is they slow down. They slow down. And they slow down so that they can gain control of the car. And they know they've got control of the car because they've got a dashboard in front of them with their real-time metrics of what's happening. So they slow the car down, they get control of the car. Now, amateur drivers like you and I would probably go like, just wait until the corner's over and then you gun it again into the straightaway. Nuh-uh. Because the real driver knows, the professional driver knows that how you win the race is you need to accelerate in the middle of a corner. You accelerate in the middle of the corner so that by the time you hit the end of the corner, you leave the corner with great momentum. And you get to lap everybody else who waited. We are in the middle of a corner, and we don't know how long it's going to last. We need to accelerate now. For those of you who are going, I'm just going to wait this out until it kind of gets back to normal, good luck. You're going to be lapped. You need to accelerate now. So we need to go, and this is why I've called this session, kind of C2C leadership, because what we need to do is we need to go from a state of chaos to a state of composure. But once we hit the state of composure, we need to ensure that that state of composure does not become a state of complacency. And we do that by introducing chaos again to the mix. So we go from chaos to composure, but we don't want that to turn into complacency. So we introduce chaos again. We accelerate. Let's go. Now, some of you might be sitting there saying, look, how do we know? How do we know when we've reached that point of stability? Hey, guess what? If over the past 3 months you've used the term the new normal, guess what? You're in a state of composure, leading towards a state of complacency. I guess this is what we do now. We got to be better than that. We really do. I mean, this is why, Jackie Stewart said the exit from the corner is way more important than the entry. It's way more important than the entry. Prepare yourself to exit the corner by accelerating now. Now, here's something else that we're in the middle of. That this is pretty much where all of your clients are. Now, this is Times Square, of course, and Times Square is the most expensive promotional real estate in the world. The first time, that I had a campaign that actually launched in Times Square, I flew to New York. I did a global campaign for Evian, and the line was, the most important body of water is your own. Yeah, you probably don't remember that, right? No, that's all right. But it appeared in billboards all around Times Square. I flew down for a Canadian kid to have their work appear in Times Square. It was amazing. I flew down. It was a really important spot. And I realized that when I went there, that this entire ecosystem has been built for that. Most expensive promotional real estate in the world. But to the person that it's been designed for, the person, the consumer who's standing in the middle of Times Square, they have no idea where to look. Because that one's blinking, and that one's flashing, and that one's scrolling, and that's a celebrity, and that's an M&M's character. They have no idea where to look. Because at the top of Times Square are the established businesses like yours, with established roles, with established communications, with established look and feels. Yep, it's really polished. They can afford to be there. It's big budgets. They spend a lot of money. They're up there. But I have no idea where to look. Now, worse is down below. Because down below on the street, that is a completely different level of entrepreneur down there, right? You've been there. You got some guy selling a knocked off Gucci. You got somebody else selling street meat. You got someone standing on a soapbox telling you the end of the world is going. You also have some really valid businesses there. But those entrepreneurs, they can be more nimble. They can be more aggressive. They can be more targeted. They can be more relevant because they know exactly who the person is that's walking by, and they can customize for that individual person. But to that person, while the pitch might sound compelling, they're just not exactly sure whether those people are going to be around tomorrow. So on one level, they don't know where to look. On another level, with all the disruption that's happening in your business, they don't know who to trust. They don't know where to look. They don't know who to trust. And you throw that in on top of a whole pandemic thing. This is why we need C2C leadership. We need C2C leadership, where we go from chaos to composure and then back again from composure to chaos to accelerate out of the curve. Okay. Now, some of you, might be going like, man, I didn't sign up for this. Like, I just really didn't sign up for this. And I'd say, you know what? Well, when chaos strikes, this is when the pros appear. The pros appear because the pros know that what makes you a pro is that you know how to navigate the corners. Anyone can win in the straightaway. And you've seen this. You've seen this. We know that, there's a certain level of real estate that when we're in a great market, it's not that anyone can sell a house, but a lot of people can sell houses. It's during challenging times when the pros really, really appear. And that is where you are going to deliver the difference between you and all those upstart competitors who are banging their drum at the street level of Times Square trying to capture attention. The pros appear when the chaos strikes. This is, the line. I absolutely love this line, that only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked, by Warren Buffett. And my friends, in pretty much every business out there, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are out there who are covering their mid parts. Some of them are going on Zoom. Okay, well, that's for another time. So how do we do that? How do we get out of this zone where we're not naked? Well, it really is the C2C leadership, and this is what we need to do. Okay, is if you're like, well, I don't lead people, it's me and maybe some admin staff, or maybe you have a very large team. At the end of the day, you can also be leading yourself, and this is what leadership really is. Leadership, C2C leadership, is where we are bound by purpose, where we are defined by the actions we take, and we are adopted by communication. Okay, we are bound by purpose. We are inspired by what we believe in, but that's not enough. We are defined by the actions that we take. And third, and most importantly, is that if you want to grow your business, those two things need to bring other people on side who are looking at other options. And you do that the way you communicate. It is really about think, do, say, which, as Alicia talked about, is the book that you can get on sale everywhere. That is it. It is about thinking and doing and saying. And you can't just do one and not the others. You can't cherry pick. You just can't. Because if all you do is think, well, then you're a philosopher. And compensation for philosophers is absolutely horrible. And there's a ton of competition because anybody with an Instagram account and a Maya Angelou quote is a philosopher these days. So you can't just do that. So you really need to do more than just think. Now, you can't just do either. Because if all you do is do, you're exhausting. If you're not laddering up and focusing your actions on really specific things to reinforce your purpose, that what you believe, they're useless. You're just going to spin yourself crazy. And if you have colleagues, they hate you. They hate you. You're exhausting to deal with because you define your success by the number of hours you work, not the quality of those hours and the contribution to a greater effort. And then the third part is if all you do is talk about the things you're going to do, but you never do them, you'll be found out. You'll just be found out. One client at a time. It is about thinking and doing and saying. We're bound by purpose. We're defined by action. We're adopted by communication. As you can see where I'm sitting, the sun is coming in. I hope I'm not blinded at any time. It's a beautiful day out there, but I'd rather be in here with you. I really would. Okay, let's break it down from a purpose standpoint, okay? Now, this is one of the last in-person engagements I had was with Purelator, wonderful organization. It was about 1,000 people. It wasn't in Vegas. It was in Mississauga. It's which is the Vegas of Ontario. Yeah, no, maybe. Okay. So it was in Mississauga. And when I spoke to them, I went to the CEO, John Ferguson, not the former hockey general manager. But I said, let's talk about purpose. What is the purpose of the organization? Do you have one? You know, and he said, yeah, we do. In fact, it's this. It's to make Canada stronger. And I said, well, like really? Okay, that's really nice. That's really, really nice. I love that you wrote that. What does that mean? And he said, look, when we do what we do really, really well, we reinforce that purpose. So we allow entrepreneurs to deliver their goods to their customers. We do that. We make them stronger. We allow Canadians to receive the goods that they want to buy direct. We allow them to do that. We allow them to communicate in an old school way with other people. And then we allow small business to get the supplies that they need to be able to offer what they offer to their clients. So when we do what we do really well, we make Canada stronger. That's what we fundamentally believe in. And I loved it. And I thought, well, we'll see if they actually, if they actually do it, if it's not just a think and a say without the do. And then the pandemic hit. And some of you may remember during those early days, there was a moment here in Ontario where we were awaiting the arrival of 500,000 masks from 3M. And there began these political games south of the border with who, to say, well, we're not sure that 3M is going to deliver those, whether they'll be allowed to deliver them out of the US into Canada. And we weren't sure whether our frontline workers were going to have the masks they needed. And then on, I think it was April 8th, Purelator tweeted out this photo. And more than that, they had this message alongside with the photo. And yeah, it was April 8th. Great news. We just received the first shipment of 500,000 masks and we're working quickly to get them into the hands of healthcare workers. Thank you to Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford, public officials at all levels, and our staff for their help to make this happen. Now let's break this down, okay? It's really important. One, great news. They kick off at a really stressful time with a positive attitude. Secondly, we just received the first shipment of 500,000 masks, which is an update on information. It's an update on facts. It's the most current information. Next, they're defined by the actions they take. We are working quickly to get them into the hands of healthcare workers. And then adopted by communication, the tone of their communication isn't them beating their chest going, look at us, look who they picked to deliver the masks. No. Now is not the time for that. So what they did was they changed their communication and said, look, it's really inclusive. They thanked two politicians at opposite ends of the political spectrum and at completely different levels of government. They helped the bureaucracy and their own staff to make it happen. Now, what's great about this is that when this time comes, that when we get out of this, they don't need to beat their chest and say, this is what our purpose is. We'll make Canada stronger, because their actions defined it for them. And they could tell the story, when we had our most important delivery, where did we turn? We turned to Purelator. It's a beautiful story, but now is not the time for them to beat their chest. So we certainly know that we need to stand for something more. Our purpose needs we need to believe in something that goes beyond the thing we sell, homes. We need to believe in something that goes beyond our revenue source, commission. We just need to. So here's why. This is Milton Friedman, who's renowned University of Chicago. And you know what? Why don't I do this? I'm going to do this. Look at that, right? Now I'm Milton. So Milton Friedman in 1970 wrote this great paper, The Social Responsibility is to Increase Its Profits. That was the goal. Milton was really, his idea of capitalism was maximizing shareholder value. And that was the sole purpose of the organization. And then this stood for 50 years, 50 years. And those of us, myself included, and probably most of you, firm believers in capitalism, said, yeah, this is our job. This is the definition of a corporation. We put as much money into the pockets of the shareholders, especially if the shareholder is you. And then in their consumer mind, they can take that money and they can go solve whatever problem they want, but that's not our job as the corporation. For 50 years, we clung to that. And then last August, pre-pandemic, the Business Roundtable got together and said, this has to change. This idea of capitalism, Friedman's ideal of capitalism, has to change, because we do not have, one stakeholder. We do not have one constituent. We actually have 5. We have shareholders. Yes, sure. But we also have customers, and we have employees, and we have suppliers, and we have the community in which we operate. And those things are really, really important. We do not have one constituent. We have 5. And the Business Roundtable wasn't just some think tank. This was 180 CEOs representing 35% of the total market cap in the US, headed and chaired by Doug Saunders, the CEO of Walmart. So we know that your peers, if you will, in the private sector, they fundamentally believe this. And this is pre-pandemic. And it's only increased since that time. I'm just going to see if I can move my desk back a little bit with my light. There we go. Is that better? There we are. Okay. So we know that this is really, really important. Now, in your world, why do you need to stand for something more? Why do you need to believe in something that goes beyond commission, that goes beyond what you sell? And here's why. I talked about that low level, street level of Times Square and all these new disruptors coming in. I know some of these are gone, but we see that, we know that every category over the last few years has had a coup where insurgent forces have tried to topple the establishment. You're the establishment. And what typically happens in disruptive forces is the first thing they go after is fees. And you know this. And a lot of these are kind of out there saying, we'll cut our fees. We'll cut our fees. You don't pay as much in fees. My friend, you know this as knowledgeable experts and professionals. I don't care about the fee. What I care about is the fee as it relates to the house you're going to get, the price you're going to get me for my house. So if you cut your fee, but you get me $50,000 less, you're still going to lose me money. That's why you're in the seat you're in. That's why our real estate agent, and the first time we worked with her, when we sold 2 homes, my wife and I, when we got together and we went and we said, you're going to cut your fee, right? Because we're giving you 2 homes. She said, I don't cut my fee. I don't cut my fee. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get you more for your house than you ever imagined. And she did. And I didn't care about the percentage. This is what you do. You're a pro. They can cut their fee all they want. You're going to deliver more. You're going to deliver way more. So we know that if we believe in something that goes beyond the fee, that will allow us to deliver more, and it will allow us to protect our margin. Because what they're using is the old Jeff Bezos line, which is your margin is my opportunity. Deliver more. People won't worry about the margin, but you need to believe in something more. And I love this, it's slightly analogous to this great scene from There's Something About Mary. Some of you may remember this scene, but Harlan Williams, who's a great Canadian comedian, goes weirdly uncredited for his role in this movie. I don't know why. But anyhow, you may remember Ben Stiller picks him up, and Ben Stiller goes to Harlan Williams, hey, what do you do for a living? And he goes, you ever hear of the 7-minute abs? He goes, you ever hear of the 8-minute abs? And Ben Stiller goes, yeah, I've heard of the 8-minute abs. He's like, I'm making the 7-minute abs. And Ben Stiller goes, what are you going to do when someone comes out with the 6-minute abs? And he goes, dude, you can't get a good workout in 6 minutes, right? So this is, for them to just complete cut commission, you don't want to be involved in that game. That is a race to the bottom, and you know that, and you're better than that. You're a pro. So you need to show that you're a pro by believing in something that goes beyond the commission check, okay? Now, if you look at, Lady Gaga, I don't love the music, but I do love the brand. And I think I raised this point when we were with you in Vegas. But what I love about Lady Gaga is people are like, she doesn't believe her purpose isn't to become the best musician in the world. Some of you are like, what's your purpose? My purpose is to be the best real estate agent in the world. Not going to fly. Because what's happened is Lady Gaga, I said, I don't believe in being the best musician in the world. What Lady Gaga believes is, in her words, her belief is, I believe that people should be free to express themselves. And so because of that, she can take that belief and she can diversify her portfolio into a whole bunch of different ways, to the point that we don't even know what to call her. Is she an actress? Is she a musician? Is she a choreographer? Is she a freak? Is she a fashion icon, a fashion label? To the point that when Lady Gaga decides, when music stops touring, right? When music stops touring and her livelihood is gone, well, then she can come out with a makeup line that's still driven by the same purpose, diversifies the portfolio, and allows her to come out with a makeup line. Our house, your rules. Same purpose, completely different product. Now, for you, I know what happens. That if you say, oh, yeah, I do. I believe in something more important. But I'm really only going to talk to my clients when they're looking for a house. This is the most expensive investment that most people will make in their lives. The most expensive investment they'll ever make. And yes, you make a lot of money on that commission. And you may not want to talk to them until the big check is ready to come, when they're looking for their next house or when they're looking to sell. And so some of you fake it, right? You send out your monthly emails, or you do your, like, I know it's your birthday, happy birthday. And I got to tell you that most people, they just see through it. They know that somewhere in some automated CRM system that, it's my birthday, and it automatically kicks out an email, or it sends you a reminder of something. What you want is just an excuse to speak to them, to string them along in the conversation. I don't mean you're being unethical about that or anything. I totally buy it. But what you need is the excuse to speak to them has to be more relevant to the thing that you just helped them out with, their home. And so if you believe in something more important, yes, you could become the best real estate agent in your neighborhood, but you could also diversify your portfolio with other services. And Alicia talked to us about this. She talked to us about this with some of those other partner companies that you can work with, and certainly, but some of that you can start to explore on your own. I just told you, we just started looking. Is there a problem with my audio? Did somebody say there's a problem with the audio?
Not here. Sounds good to me, Ron. So
okay.
Yeah. So if
Kathy, you got to turn up your volume, I think.
Yeah, or maybe somebody got home and started watching Netflix.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Okay, it's all good. My plug has just come out here weirdly. So this is what you need to do, that you need to look at, start diversifying your portfolio. Now, I know that some of this stuff is low margin stuff, right? You're like, why do I want to do that? Why do I want to get involved in low margin lawn care in a house? Why do I now want to take on the risk of hooking my homeowner up with a contractor to do a renovation? Because you believe in something that goes beyond the commission check. And by the way, the low margin stuff every single month, that's where that leads to the high margin stuff. Trust me. If we're here to add value to people's homes, we need more than these random excuses to reach out with the calendar, the kind of the new version of the calendar. We need to believe in something more and use that to go in and diversify our services. And yes, believe, because as we told ourselves last year, a year and a half ago, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Now, we have gone through a little bit of what I would call a purpose pivot. And there are a couple of quick examples here that go with this. The first is that a lot of people have had to revisit their purpose because they realized the purpose didn't set them up for this downturn in the economy. And so this is I live in Toronto, and this is some food from a great place called Pasquale Brothers. Now, Pasquale Brothers, from a purpose standpoint, really, while they have a retail outlet, the real purpose was to provide authentic Italian ingredients to the restaurants of Toronto. And they did that. They had a great business. But then when their business goes away and the restaurant shuts down, what the hell are they supposed to do then? Because their purpose was in question. So they go back and they revisit. They're like, is this what we really believe? Maybe we need to expand on the purpose. And so if the purpose becomes our purpose, we believe in supplying people with authentic Italian meals. Well, now that allows them to pivot into doing direct-to-consumer delivery. And they did that really quickly, allowing them to save their business. Now, the other part of this purpose pivot that we went through is that there is now an assumption that we're all in this together from a value standpoint. Now, we saw this really, really big during the beginning of the pandemic. Now, if you live in Toronto, for those who do, you may have heard of a grocery store called Pusateri's. Pusateri's, I think, has 3 locations, like North Toronto, Yorkville, and downtown. This is the place that if you want to pay $37 for a tangerine, you go there, right? Yeah. They have, everything is like ridiculously priced. It makes Summerhill Market look like a no frills. It's ridiculous. And for years, nobody cared. You want to pay $37 for a tangerine? Go ahead. And there's nothing in their purpose and their beliefs that would state you're going to get a deal. In fact, when you go and you see, when they spoke of their founder, Mr. Pusateri, he believed in the best and only the best. Today, his spirit remains our guiding principle and our standard of excellence. Well, there's no way you're getting a deal at this place with a purpose like that. And then, yep, as Carol hinted at, and then they did this. Lysol wipes for $30 a pack, and people freaked out. There's an assumption that we're all in this together from a values perspective. The premier himself called them out in a press release or in a press conference. There's a purpose pivot where now, during these times, we all need to be kind of on the same wavelength. So we need to stand for something to set ourselves up, to diversify our portfolio, to allow us to cut through. And you may remember this term from our time in Vegas, because if all you're doing is you're standing in the middle of Times Square and telling people how you can help them sell their homes over and over and over and over again, you're pitch slapping them. And then people are exhausted from being in the middle of Times Square and getting pitch slapped every single day. And I will give you an example. I should have grabbed a screen grab of it. 2 days ago, I got a LinkedIn message from a mortgage broker who said, "Hi, Ron. I noticed from your profile that you're looking to buy a home in Toronto. And I hear I provide the best mortgage service to my clients, bobbity, 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 bobbity." And what I said to him was, my reply was, "Tell me, what was it in my portfolio that led you to believe I'm in the market for a home?" Just bought a new home 2 years ago, currently in the middle of a renovation. What was it? And he started going on about the service he provided. And I said, "You didn't answer the question. What was it about my profile that led you to believe that I was in the market for a house, which led you to believe that you could pitch slap me with an email on LinkedIn out of nowhere? Tell me." And of course, there was nothing. It was an excuse of a line so that he had an excuse to send me an email, even though the excuse wasn't even true. And he said, "I don't know. The people that do my marketing on LinkedIn for me identify prospects." He had outsourced the whole thing to a group who was pitch slapping on his behalf. Come on. Are you kidding me? We have to be better than this. Because guess who is never, 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 ever going to call him? This guy. We need more than excuses. We need a purpose to get them there. And we do that in that we are defined by our action. Now, you're lucky that you have the umbrella brand of Royal LePage, of which you are a part of, one of the most trusted and recognizable brands in the country. Now, we know, though, that the average Canadian consumer has what my colleagues at Church and State and I call Goldilocks syndrome, which is they want you to be big enough to deliver, but they want you to be small enough to care, which was really an old tagline from Allstream. That yes, we need to be at the top of Times Square. We need to have the legacy. We need to have the history. We need to be polished enough. But at the same time, we need to have actions as individuals that make us really small enough to care. And that's on you. That is 100% on you. So the actions that you take with your prospects and your clients, you deliver the balance of top of Times Square and bottom of Times Square for the middle of Times Square, which is where we want to be. But that's through your actions. Now, actions and changing actions can be really, this is how difficult it is, okay? This is how difficult it is to change what we do on a daily basis. Just take a look at this. Yeah. You may endorse the change, you may support the change, but every day you get up doing the exact same thing you did yesterday. You may be 100% behind it, but every day you do what comes natural. You've got muscle memory of the things that you do. You need to consciously think and make a plan to change what you do, because it's not just going to happen. Even if you're right here going, I'm nodding, I get all this, I buy it. No, not good enough. Make a plan. What are the 5 things you're going to do differently tomorrow than what you did today? Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Now, there's a number of things that really you need to think about when guiding your actions. So the first is this one. During the start of the pandemic, this is Anthony Longo, the CEO of Longo's, a grocery store in Ontario. And this is him restocking shelves. And he didn't announce that he was coming. He just showed up, saw that some shelves were being stocked by a part-timer, and stepped up and said, I'll give you a hand. The manager didn't even know that he was coming. Now, what's really important about this, for those of you who have a team of people who help you, is that when something like this occurs, we need to communicate that all jobs are up for grabs. And I don't mean elimination of jobs, but I mean the definition and the roles and responsibility of a job. That I'm sure nobody on your team before this had the job of spraying a lockbox or cleaning a house with protocols. Nobody's job was to set up Zoom appointments so you can do open houses. But it's got to be somebody's. So right out of the gate, if you're a leader, you need to roll up your sleeves and show that your job is also up for grabs, that you may need to change your responsibilities. That's what a leader does as we go from chaos to composure. You need to roll up your sleeves and show that you're there with them. Now, to do that, one of the next things we need to do as we're looking at our actions is we need to embrace our limitations. And I know some of you went out there going, oh, this is going to be horrible. These open houses are going to be horrible. If we embrace our limitations, we can actually, in some ways, make it better. We can discover things that we would have never, ever have discovered because we thought that it wasn't possible. If we embrace our limitations, we can get to a better place in some regards. Now, this isn't as good as Vegas, but there's some great things about it. I've got to be with a newborn for the last 7 months. I get to put on the bed every night. That's fantastic. And people, you know, like you don't, maybe you wanted to go on those trips, but there's a way that now maybe you've rediscovered parts of your relationships or your children or whatever, that you can embrace limitations to get to something better. Now, if you're over, I'm 50, which I know you're like, how does this dude who's 50 have a newborn and a toddler? I'm a granddaddy, daddy. Started a little late. But and I'm exhausted, by the way. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. I pulled a hamstring making toast this morning. Yeah, you don't want to do this. But so if you're 50 or over, you would probably understand this reference. If you're under 50, and you probably don't, but you can Google it. This, of course, is Bob and Doug McKenzie. In my mind, the most famous Canadian sketch of all time. One of the most the most famous Canadian comedy duos. Of course, this was Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas, and they did this when they were at Second City at SCTV. Now, here's the story behind the most successful sketch of all time in Canada. In that SCTV at this point was filming in Edmonton. And when they moved networks to CBC, they had 2 extra minutes. And for those 2 extra minutes, the CRTC mandated that they create more Canadian content. Yeah. The cast of SCTV were like, what are you talking about? We We shoot this in Edmonton. We're all Canadian, or most of us are Canadian. How much more Canadian content could you get? So they could have just flipped the bird, but what they did was embrace their limitations. And they said, okay, if they want Canadian content, let's embrace it completely. And how Canadian can we make this? And that was what started Bob and Doug McKenzie. It was a joke. Was they said, how Canadian can we make this? What's the most stereotypical Canadian thing we could do? And they started improvising and came up with two hosers wearing toques in front of a map of Canada, drinking stubbies. So we need to embrace our limitations. The next thing we need to do, and I've hinted at this before, was that we need to perform a coup. We need to perform a coup on ourselves, on our processes, on our procedures. We need to disrupt ourselves. We need to be the insurgent force that takes our own legacy systems down. That's what we need to do. Now, many of you are sitting there going like, well, I know I should have been more digital and I should have done that more and more. And some of you know that you're thinking this, right? Which led the digital transformation of your company? Was it the CEO, the CTO, or, oh, right, it was COVID-19. Okay, got it, right. So we know that this is happening. Now, some of you are sitting there saying, look, how am I supposed to disrupt my business when we've never been through this before? How do I use that as a guide? How do I do that? Well, how we do it is we look to others who have been through it before. Now, the music industry had their own COVID-19. The music industry had COVID-19, and it was called Napster. Complete disruption of their business where people were going down hard and fast. Okay. And bye, Crystal. Thanks for coming out, and Lucienne. So if we look at the music business, let's look at what they did, because the music business is one of the only businesses gone through a full and complete cycle of disruption to the point that it's reinventing itself again. So what did they do? Well, the first thing is that we know that the music business had the members of the establishment. It had four key players. It had radio stations. It had record labels. It had radio stations. It had music stores, album stores, and it had the artists. Okay, stores, stations, labels, and artists. And it was a closed loop system, right? Everybody had their own. They had worked out the point. You're taking 10 points. I'm taking 20 points, right? And not everybody could come into the establishment. So the label said, look, we're going to lead this for everybody. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go and we're going to find artists to welcome into the establishment. And we're going to choose only the best ones. Don't worry, we got it. We'll tour the world. We'll welcome those people in. Once they're in the establishment, well, radio stations, you know what to play. And record stores, you know what to sell. And we'll make money, and you'll make money, and they'll make money, and it will be grand. And you know this, that there were some artists. I remember I did some work with the advisory board, the board of directors of the Calgary Stampede. And they said that at one point, when Taylor Swift was really young, just starting her career, they were questioning whether to book her or not. And they were working with a record music executive to help guide their talent selection. And he said, I need 3 days, and I'll tell you whether to book her or not. And he went away, and 3 days later, he said, you can do it. She's going to go. And they said, what do you mean she's going to go? And they said, she's going to be welcomed into the establishment. She's going to get the deal. She's going to get the radio play. She's going to get sold in stores. They're going to flip the switch and she's going to go. It was a beautiful system for years. And then what happened? Well, what happens in great disruptions is that it's absolute chaos. We give power to the people, and the chaos occurs because what happened in music was they said, you don't have to have the man tell you what music to listen to. You can listen to whatever you want. People were like, yeah. And what did they do? They saw the savings that they could get. They threw all morality out the window. They tore up the contracts they had with their existing suppliers. And it was absolute chaos. It was absolute chaos. And what happens in chaos? What happens? What is the second stage of a successful coup d'etat? Well, a power vacuum. Because what occurs is that new problems emerge from the pandemic. New problems emerge in music. And who fills the power vacuum? It is people who solve those problems. And so in music, new players came to the forefront, because what happened was that the average Canadian music lover went from, you don't have to have the man tell you what music to listen to, can someone just tell me what music to listen to? Because there's too much. The new problem that emerged from the crisis was that they actually needed a different level of gatekeeper. They needed somebody to give them advice. They needed somebody who could cut through the clutter of all the DIY stuff and actually help them out. Now, what everybody said was, oh, the labels are dead. The labels are going to go away. The reality is, yeah, the shitty ones, they went away. They just did. They didn't innovate. They thought they'd wait it out, and they went away. But the smart ones, the smart ones became members of the new establishment. And so the members of the new establishment aren't the radio stations and the record stores, but it is Spotify, it is Apple Music, it is Live Nation, and it's the labels, the smart labels. Because not only did the smart labels embrace their limitations, perform a coup of their procedures and process, and come out the other side as members of the new establishment, not only that, but they're actually more profitable than they ever were before. Why? Because they don't have warehouses that store CDs. They don't have to travel around the world seeing artists, all that stuff. They don't. So we need to embrace our limitations, evaluate what the problems are that we need to solve, and solve those problems so that we can come out the other side as being members of the new establishment. So I'll finish up very quickly here in that we are adopted by communication. We know that. We're adopted by communication. And what does that mean? What I mean really quickly is that we need to communicate in a really authentic way. We need to communicate in an authentic way. And I know authenticity is like a $2 word, and this is what it means to me. Authenticity is being comfortable with your imperfections. Now, I had a really interesting year and a half ago in Sarasota, Florida. I did the gig of all gigs. It was 100 CEOs from, and only the CEOs. And I'm talking the 100. There are only 2 from Canada. I'm talking the largest organizations in the world, okay? And no handlers allowed in the room. It was just the room presenting to the room. There were only 3 external speakers, me, George Bush, and Jeb Bush. It was insane. I couldn't share, security was through the roof. I couldn't share on Twitter or Instagram where I was and all that stuff. And so I was talking, so because of Chatham House rules, I can't tell you who was in the room, but I can tell you what was said. I just can't attribute it to anybody. And 2 things that you should know from this room. One was that the room asked one of the presenters, who was the CEO of a very, 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 very large e-commerce company that you've all bought stuff from. And he stood before the room in his infinite wealth and boldness and said, look, everybody asks us about how we embrace failure. We don't embrace failure, we punish it. We've built 85 distribution centers by now. We should know how to do that. But what we do is we experiment. And we experiment, and the whole goal of an experiment is to find out whether we learned anything along the way. So we don't embrace failure, but we certainly embrace experiments. The second thing that I thought was really critical was to do with authenticity. And it was a CEO of a global software company, again, who you know, who was from the Deep South. And he said, before this, I was at a CPG. And when I hit the level of vice president, they sent me on a leadership development course. And I quickly realized that the sole purpose of the leadership development course was to get me to lose my Southern accent. And then he said, they didn't think I would have credibility on the global stage. So they sent me this thing to lose my Southern accent. And then he goes, so I quit. Because I realized my voice, it ain't a bug, it's a feature. And that's so true. Authenticity is being comfortable with your imperfections. If you show up looking and acting and sounding like the stock photo version of what you think a real estate agent is supposed to look and act and sound like, I'm not buying it. I'm just not buying it. I've told people that during this time that your roots are showing. And I don't mean what you think they are. I mean your roots. The things that anchor you, the things that ground you in life, your spouses and your children and your pets and your third floor homes of your unfinished renovation. Your roots are showing, and the roots of all your clients are showing. And if you're hiding your true self from me, my gut reaction is, as I'm standing in the middle of Times Square, what else are you hiding? I don't know where to look. I don't know who to trust. What I want is a partner, somebody who is bound by purpose, who's defined by action, and who's adopted by communication. That's what you're here for. When chaos strikes, the pros appear. Be the pro I know you are. Thanks so much for your time. Move this. It's the sun thing has been weird, right? Yeah. So I don't think we have time for questions, and I'm really sorry. I just pushed it a little bit too long. But by all means, reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn or wherever you'd like to. And that I mean that in a non-pitch slap way. But I'd happily answer your questions. And if you want to call BS on anything, by all means. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ron. I've got to say, your presentation was amazing. There are so many comments in the chat here of people that are so grateful for the insights that you provided us with. Pitch slapping, not going to lie. I'm going to use that line. It does happen. LinkedIn is the best place to be pitch slapped.
Yeah.
And I can say that I was pitch slapped multiple times this week. So, so thank you for that. The other thing I loved too is the car analogy. Like racing analogy about how you've got to kind of gain that momentum when you're like midway through the corner and kind of, get out on the straight. And I think that's so applicable to now and the situation that we're in today. And the other analogy, because I'm also a car lover, is keep your eyes on the road. Otherwise, this is what is going to happen. Right in front of you. I just saw this, actually, this just came up. This unfortunately happened today locally.
No.
Keep your eyes, not to me, but it happened today. Keep your eyes on the road right in front of you. We're not going that way. We're not going that way. We're going in front. And that's how we will get through this crazy time together. So Ron, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
That's awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Ron. And so, ladies and gentlemen, just a few housekeeping things that I wanted to add before we finish off here. Number one, we do have a tornado warning in effect for several areas in Ontario. So please check your local authorities, check the radio station, and make sure that you are staying safe. Because that is the last thing that we need right now. We love our beloved Royal LePage family. Please put in the chat what drink you will be pouring yourself tonight, because I do need inspiration and we are getting close to that hour. So please let me know what you will be enjoying. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We had a few amazing presentations today, a really great panel, some fabulous market updates and insights from Phil. So I really hoped that you enjoyed today's session, and we will look to do something very soon in the near future. We really miss being around together. I really wish things were different. I'm still really hopeful that September we will be reunited in Winnipeg, and just be warned that I will probably hug every single one of you. So hopefully I don't get any assault charges. I'll be like Pepe Le Pew. Anyway, on that note, in the words of Rihanna, cheers to the freaking weekend. I'll drink to that. Thank you so much, Royal LePage, and